Chapter 1540. Begging for Death. By the side, Demon Monarch Gu Yu and Demon Monarch Mount Mang were somewhat embarrassed. This young Master Yi was good at everything, except that he liked to posture. As Yi Xian's voice faded, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Yi Xian. The middle-aged man looked to be in his 30s. He was tall and wore a beast-hide robe. He stood there like a mountain and emitted an invisible pressure. Sky Demon Monarch, the leader of the 10 demon monarchs of the Great Desolate Mountain Range. Sky Demon Monarch looked at Yi Xian. Are you here to seek death? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Sky Demon Monarch sized up Yi Xian. Adversity Constitution. Furthermore, there are 2 bloodline powers suppressed in your body. Yi Xian was somewhat surprised. As expected of the leader of the demon monarchs. He was not simple. Sky Demon Monarch suddenly looked at Gu Yu and Mount Mang. What makes me even more curious is that the 2 of them are actually with a human like you. Mount Mang said, in the Nether River Star Field, humans and demons are one family. Gu Yu, Yi Xian, Sky Demon Monarch looked at Mount Mang and gave him a thumbs up. You're awesome. Mount Mang fell silent. He knew that Sky Demon Monarch looked down on him. But he didn't care. If flattery could give him that much purple aura, he was willing to become a flatterer. Purple aura. The purple aura was enough to change his and Demon Monarch Gu Yu's fate. This was because the purple aura could allow them to break through their bloodline shackles, allowing them to surpass their ancestors and reach new heights. Such an opportunity was hard to come by in 100,000 years. Furthermore, was flattery shameful? From his point of view, it was not embarrassing. Some demons didn't even have the chance to flatter young Master Yi. At that moment, Sky Demon Monarch looked at Yi Xian. Are you here to challenge me? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Sky Demon Monarch nodded. Then I'll do it. With that said, he suddenly punched out. It was pure physical strength. With a single punch, the heavens collapsed and the earth cracked. In the face of this terrifying punch, Yi Xian showed no sign of fear. He took a step forward and thrust his sword forward. Sword of life and death. He thrust his sword forward. Boom. The power of Celestial Monster King's punch was shattered. At this moment, Celestial Monster King punched again. Rumble. In front of a human demon, a wave of sword light exploded. Then Yi Xian retreated 1,000 feet, and the Heavenly Demon King also retreated 1,000 feet. After the Celestial Demon King stopped, he looked at his right hand. There was a deep sword mark on his right fist. Seeing this scene, he frowned. He had a corporeal body at the peak of the Eternal Realm. In the entire Great Desolate Mountain Range, his physique was second only to that beast. But now, his body's defenses had been broken by a human in the Dao Attainment Realm. Celestial Demon King looked at Yi Xian in the distance. Your strike is impressive. Yi Xian smiled and said, that punch of yours is not bad either. Again. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared on the spot. A strand of sword light tore through the air. In the distance, the Celestial Demon King narrowed his eyes. He suddenly spread his legs apart, and then he half-squatted and crossed his arms in front of him. Immovable mountain. As soon as he finished speaking, the ground beneath his feet suddenly trembled violently. Then, a mysterious force gathered from the ground like a tide around his body. At this moment, he seemed to be one with the ground. At this moment, Yi Xian's sword slashed down on the Celestial Demon King's arms. Boom! The Celestial Demon King didn't move at all like a rock, but the ground sank and the mountains shook. The Celestial Demon King suddenly roared furiously, "Army Breaker!" As soon as he finished speaking, he stomped his right foot on the ground and used the power of the earth to punch with his right hand. The momentum of this punch broke the sky and destroyed the sky. Yi Xian's pupils constricted when he saw this punch, and he blocked it with his sword. Boom! Yi Xian was sent flying backward by the punch. He was sent flying hundreds of thousands of feet away. After he stopped, a wisp of blood slowly flowed out of Yi Xian's mouth. What was even more exaggerated was that the space behind him turned pitch black. Although his sword had withstood the punch, the space behind him hadn't. Seeing this scene, Demon Monarch Gu Yu and Demon Monarch Mang's expressions turned serious. In fact, They didn't know how strong the Celestial Demon King was because they hadn't fought the Celestial Demon King before. However, they knew how strong the second-ranked Demon Monarch Hellion was, and Demon Monarch Hellion had defeated the Celestial Demon King in the past. Now that they saw the Celestial Demon King attack, they realized that the Celestial Demon King's strength was more terrifying than they imagined. In the distance, the Celestial Demon King suddenly said, "Power, come." As soon as he finished speaking, he walked toward Yi Xian. One step was a power. At this moment, the Celestial Demon King used the power of the earth, and the entire earth became one with him. He was the earth. Power of the earth. The power of the earth. In the distance, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. He held the sword in his right hand and pointed it at the ground. This power of the earth was so familiar. As long as he used the power of the earth, he could instantly dissolve this power of the earth. However, he didn't do that. At this moment, the Celestial Demon King took another step forward. Again. Boom. The mountains and rivers in the entire Great Desolate Mountain Range suddenly trembled. Then, the power in front of Yi Xian skyrocketed. Power of mountains and rivers. Rumble. The area where Yi Xian was directly distorted. And in that area, Yi Xian felt as if tens of thousands of mountains were pressing down on him. He couldn't breathe. Yi Xian's eyes flashed with savagery. He didn't retreat and instead moved forward. His sword domain was activated. Boom. The moment the sword domain appeared, the suffocating feeling was relieved. However, his face instantly turned pale. That power was too strong. Even with the sword domain, it was difficult to block it. At this moment, the Celestial Demon King took another step forward. He clenched his fists and roared, "Power of heaven and earth!" Boom. At this moment, the entire world shook violently. Mysterious powers suddenly appeared. These powers were like a flood that gathered towards the area where Yi Xian was in the distance. Power of heaven and earth. Rumble. Yi Xian retreated hundreds of thousands of feet. The moment he stopped, he spat out several mouthfuls of blood essence. The unparalleled sword in his hand was already covered in cracks. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the distant Demon Monarch Guyu and Demon Monarch Meng instantly turned serious. The Celestial Demon King's strength was too terrifying. Could young Master Yi block it? The powers didn't follow up with another attack. Instead, they surged towards the Celestial Demon King like a tidal wave. The Celestial Demon King slowly closed his eyes. He clenched his right fist and the powers surged into his right hand. The Celestial Demon King looked at the distant Yi Xian with a savage expression. "Didn't you want to die? Come, I'll help you." As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward and smashed his fist forward. Unstoppable. He punched. A fist mark headed straight for Yi Xian. With the appearance of this fist mark, countless mountains in the Great Desolate Mountain Range collapsed inch by inch. Not only the Great Desolate Mountain Range, but the entire world also collapsed inch by inch. With one punch, everything was destroyed. Rivers dried up and mountains collapsed. In the distance, Yi Xian stared intently at the fist mark. This punch gathered the power of the earth, the power of the mountains and rivers, and the power of heaven and earth. In addition to the Celestial Demon King's own physical strength, it could be said that this punch could really destroy a world. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. At this moment of life and death, his mind became extremely clear. Power. Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. He suddenly realized a problem. The Celestial Demon King was borrowing power. Borrowing the power of the earth, the power of the mountains and rivers, and the power of heaven and earth. Since the Celestial Demon King could borrow power, why couldn't he? With that thought, he wanted to borrow power. But on second thought, was the borrowed power his own power? Yi Xian suddenly laughed. "I have a sword. Why do I need to borrow power?" As he said that, he stabbed with his sword. Sword of life and death. However, it was different from the previous sword of life and death. He was more confident and calm with this sword. Confidence in the sword. Calmness in the face of life and death. A swordsman only needed a sword. As Yi Xian stabbed with his sword, boom. In front of Yi Xian, the fist mark was suddenly stopped by Yi Xian's sword. Then, the fist mark suddenly began to collapse inch by inch and turned into nothingness. And that power was like a wisp of green smoke that dissipated in the world. Seeing this scene, the eyes of the distant celestial demon king were filled with disbelief. How is this possible? On the other side, the eyes of Demon King Mang and Demon King Guyu were also filled with disbelief. Yi Xian easily broke this punch. That was the punch of the celestial demon king's full power. In the prison pagoda, the door of disaster's expression was very gloomy. In fact, only she knew what was going on. Yi Xian's previous sword of life and death could not be considered a true mortal sword. The previous sword of life and death could at most be considered half immortal. It was still lacking some concept to become immortal. To put it simply, Yi Xian was not confident enough. He did not have enough confidence in his sword of life and death. At that time, his sword Dao faith and confidence were not particularly strong. But now, Yi Xian completely believed in his sword of life and death. This was a qualitative change. Was confidence important? Very, very, very important. Many times, confidence could affect a person's life. It could be said that the current Yi Xian sword of life and death could be considered to have become immortal. In fact, only she knew that if Yi Xian was a little more confident and did not use the sword of life and death but just casually used it, then Yi Xian had at least a 90% chance of becoming immortal. It was not the sword of life and death, but the entire person. If Yi Xian's entire person became immortal, then his strength would undergo an earth-shattering change. What is mortal? In the Cosmos God Court, being mortal meant being real. Ordinary swords were real swords. Every strike was a real sword. It truly disregarded cultivation base, defense, realm, divine abilities, laws, rules, and order. It could fight against experts of any realm. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. This was the mortal realm. If Yi Xian really reached this level, it would give her a headache. But fortunately, Yi Xian did not truly become immortal. It was just a sword of life and death. The difference was still very big. The door of calamity slowly closed its eyes. She realized that this shameless guy was growing a little too fast. This was not a good thing. Outside the world prison pagoda, Yi Xian put away his sword. He looked up at the sky and slowly closed his eyes. I really want to be beaten to death. Sky Demon Monarch Mount Mang, Demon Monarch Guyu. P.S. There's an event today. Anyone who leaves a comment in the book review section of The Only Sword has a chance of receiving a physical book of Invincible Sword Domain or The Only Sword. Don't praise, just criticism. The kind that points out the flaws of the book and makes me feel ashamed. This kind of chance is the highest. The other kind is to give good suggestions, especially those that point out the flaws and give good suggestions. This kind of chance is even higher. Other comments may also be chosen. It's up to you. Of course, I also know that many readers are silently reading and silently supporting me. I hope that you can also leave a sentence to prove that you have always been here. Especially some old readers of Invincible Sword Domain, I hope that you can come out and let me see you. Most importantly, as long as you leave a comment, you can see your fan level. You can see what level you are. Alliance Master Level fans will get a free book and a photo of me. Chapter 1541. He wanted to be beaten to death. By the side, Demon King Guyu and Demon King Mang Mountain had odd expressions. Young Master Ye's posturing really left them speechless. Celestial Demon King looked at Yi Xian. Human, I admit you are strong, but don't you think you are too arrogant? Yi Xian looked at Celestial Demon King and smiled. Again. Celestial Demon King shook his head. Yi Xian frowned slightly. As far as I know, you demon beasts will be stronger after returning to your original form. You can return to your original form. Celestial Demon King still shook his head. I am bullying you if I fight you. After all, my realm is much higher than yours. If I return to my original form, even if I win, what's the point? Yi Xian was about to speak when Celestial Demon King continued. Strictly speaking, I have lost to you. Besides, Even if I return to my original form, I can't do anything to you with that strike just now. So, let's not fight anymore. At this moment, his heart was very complicated. This human was only at Dao attainment realm. He was several realms higher than this human and had an eternal realm body. But to be beaten like this, he felt like a failure. If he returned to his original form, he would look down on himself. Seeing that Celestial Demon King didn't want to fight anymore, Yi Xian didn't force him. He cupped his fists. Celestial Demon King, sorry for disturbing you. With that said, he opened his palm and a ball of purple gas floated in front of Celestial Demon King. When Celestial Demon King saw this ball of purple gas, shock flashed in his eyes. This, Yi Xian smiled. Celestial Demon King, this is a small token of my appreciation. I hope you will accept it. Celestial Demon King looked deeply at Yi Xian. Human, this is too precious. Yi Xian smiled. It is precious. That's why I am giving it to you. This gas should be helpful to you. If you don't mind, please accept it. Celestial Demon King was silent for a moment. Little friend, frankly speaking, I can't refuse this purple gas. But I can't take your purple gas for nothing. Obviously, he wanted Yi Xian to make a request. Yi Xian glanced at Celestial Demon King. Celestial Demon King was very principled. After thinking for a while, Yi Xian said, Heavenly Demon King, how about this? Take this as a good karma. Celestial Demon King naturally understood what Yi Xian meant. He wanted him to owe him a favor. After a moment of silence, the Heavenly Demon King said, Sure. As he spoke, he withdrew the strand of violet energy, and then he said, If you need my help in the future, just send someone here to notify me. I, Heavenly Demon King, will definitely not refuse. Yi Xian smiled and said, Sure. As if thinking of something, he asked, Heavenly Demon King, where is that beast? Berserk beasts. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the expressions of the three demon monarchs changed. Sky Demon King said solemnly, Little friend, it's not good for you to look for it now. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. Why? Sky Demon King looked at Yi Xian. If you look for it now, it won't be training but courting death. Yi Xian said solemnly, Is it very strong? Sky Demon King nodded. Very, very strong. I've fought you before, so I have a rough understanding of your strength. With your current strength, it's not good for you to provoke it. Besides, according to what I know, it's cultivating in seclusion now. It's not good to be disturbed at this time. Yi Xian said softly, I see. With that said, he looked at Demon Monarch Mount Mang and Demon Monarch Guyu. Demon Monarchs, thank you for sending me off. We will meet again if fate allows it. Demon Monarch Guyu cupped his fists and said with a smile, Young Master Yi, please come to the great desolate mountain range to play when you're free in the future. Demon Monarch Mount Mang also cupped his fists. Young Master Yi, take care. Yi Xian smiled. Demon Monarchs, take care. With that said, he turned and left. There were two reasons why he formed a good relationship with these three demon monarchs. First, Yi Xian was here to train, not to make enemies. Having more friends was definitely better than having more enemies. Furthermore, he felt that many experts in the fifth dimension would come to this place in the future. Forming a good relationship here was equivalent to paving the way for the experts in the fifth dimension. At this moment, an angry roar suddenly sounded from behind him. 10,000 beasts, retreat. It was Sky Demon King's voice. As Sky Demon King's voice sounded, countless demon beasts in the endless mountain range in front of Yi Xian retreated like frightened birds. Yi Xian turned to look at where Sky Demon King was and said with a smile, Thank you. With that said, he quickened his pace. He was going to meet swordsmen. To him, no demon beast in the entire great desolate mountain range was his match except for that fierce beast. However, he did not plan to find that fierce beast. It was not that he was afraid of death, but that it was in seclusion. It was a little immoral to disturb it at this time. Sky Demon King looked at Yi Xian's disappearing figure and said softly, Two demon monarchs, do you know where this little friend came from? Guyu Demon King shook his head, I don't know the specifics. I only know that his name is Yi Xian and he seems to be from the 5th dimension. 5th dimension? Sky Demon King said, so, he is not from our Nether River Star Field? Guyu Demon King nodded, yes. Sky Demon King nodded slightly and said softly, it is very likely that a big shot brought this junior here to train. Guyu Demon King smiled bitterly, isn't that so? He did not forget that this young Master Yi had a swordsman behind him. Hellion Demon King was killed by that swordsman. Sky Demon King suddenly said, no matter what, this is a good relationship. Guyu Demon King quickly nodded. At this moment, he was somewhat glad that he did not fight to the death with Yi Xian. If that was the case, he would probably be dead by now. Not to mention obtaining this purple aura. Especially Demon King Mang Mountain, he was at the top previously. If not for Guyu Demon King stopping him, he would have fought to the death with Yi Xian. Thinking of this, Demon King Mang Mountain shook his head. It seemed that he had to change his temper. Be more low-key in the future. Be more humble. At the end of the great desolate mountain range, Yi Xian was already flying on his sword. At this moment he was in a good mood. He had gained a lot from this trip to the great desolate mountain range. Especially the sword of life and death that he comprehended. Now, even if he didn't use any external objects, he could easily kill an Eternal Realm expert. It could be said that compared to when he first came to the Nether River Star Field, his current sword Dao attainments had undergone earth-shattering changes. At this moment, there was a sudden change. Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Boom. The sword slashed down and the space in front of him directly shattered. Boom. A sword beam dispersed, and Yi Xian retreated tens of thousands of feet. Just as Yi Xian stopped, an afterimage suddenly flashed in front of him. Yi Xian's pupils suddenly constricted. He was about to strike, but he was shocked to discover that the unparalleled sword in his hand had shattered. The sword had shattered. Yi Xian was horrified. He took out the Executing Heaven sword and stabbed again. Sword of life and death plus sword domain. As soon as Yi Xian stabbed, a fist blasted the tip of the Executing Heaven sword. Boom. Yi Xian was instantly sent flying backward. With this flight, he flew hundreds of thousands of feet away. Before he could stop, an afterimage flashed in front of him. Following that, a fist went straight for his head. Under this fist, the space that Yi Xian was in was instantly annihilated. And at this moment, Yi Xian's body cracked inch by inch. At this moment of life and death, Yi Xian suddenly roared, slash. He slashed again. A sword of life and death. Moreover, he even utilized the sword domain. It was his strongest attack. An expanse of sword light descended. Rumble. The expanse of sword light in front of Yi Xian had just descended when it was instantly obliterated, and he retreated explosively for another 30 kilometers. But at this moment he saw the attacker. It was a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man wore a luxurious robe, and he had an extremely robust figure that was more than twice the size of an ordinary person. Moreover, he emanated an extremely ferocious aura. Yi Xian wiped off the blood on the corners of his mouth and gazed at the middle-aged man. You're that ferocious beast. The middle-aged man gazed at Yi Xian. Mortal initiation. Since you were able to take 3 of my punches while at the Dao attainment realm, you should be invincible amongst your peers. Unfortunately, you've only attained mortal initiation. If you've truly attained mortal initiation, then I'm afraid I really wouldn't be able to do anything to you. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. You did it for the violet energy. The middle-aged man remained expressionless. Are you going to hand it over yourself, or do I have to kill you and take it for myself? Yi Xian grinned. I'm begging to be beaten to death. The middle-aged man nodded. You've got guts. I like tough bones like you. Later, I will break all your bones bit by bit, and then erase your soul bit by bit. I hope you can still have guts at that time. As his voice fell, he suddenly punched out. The moment he punched out, Yi Xian was instantly enveloped by a powerful fist aura. Under this fist aura, he felt his heart stop beating. And in his eyes, he saw the world being annihilated bit by bit. The fist aura was overwhelming. It was dozens of times more terrifying than Heavenly Demon King's aura. Previously, Heavenly Demon King's aura was borrowed, but this ferocious beast's aura wasn't borrowed. This was his own aura. This was truly unstoppable. Yi Xian's eyes slowly narrowed. At this moment, he couldn't breathe. He gripped the sword in his hand tightly. His mind was a complete blank. Inside the prison pagoda, the door of adversity stared outside. With Yi Xian's current strength, he definitely couldn't take this punch. This ferocious beast's strength wasn't something that Yi Xian could contend with. This was no longer bullying the weak, this was crushing, a true crushing. This ferocious beast had lived for at least hundreds of thousands of years. Whether it was its realm or physical body, it far surpassed Yi Xian's. If Yi Xian had a true ordinary sword, perhaps he could fight it. Unfortunately, Yi Xian wasn't. As if thinking of something, the door of adversity frowned. This vile beast wouldn't force this shameless guy into an ordinary sword, right? Just as she finished speaking, outside, the sword in Yi Xian's hand suddenly trembled. Sensing this, the door of adversity's expression changed drastically. This shameless guy really wanted to enter an ordinary sword. Without any hesitation, the door of adversity suddenly left the prison pagoda. She directly blocked in front of Yi Xian and punched out. Boom! The ferocious beast's fist force was directly shattered by her punch. After destroying the ferocious beast's fist force with one punch, the door of adversity turned around and slapped Yi Xian. Boom! Yi Xian immediately woke up from that magical state. He looked at the door of adversity blankly. "What are you doing?" The door of adversity blinked and then said seriously, "Don't be afraid, I'll protect you." In fact, she really wanted to slap Yi Xian to death with one palm. However, she didn't dare to. Hearing the door of adversity's words, Yi Xian was a little confused. Was this woman crazy? The door of adversity turned to look at the ferocious beast with an extremely cold expression. "I hate people who bully the weak the most. Beast, if you're still in front of me in 3 breaths' time, I'll tear you apart." Yi Xian, the ferocious beast. Chapter 1542. She hated the strong bullying the weak the most? Yi Xian's face darkened. Damn it, this woman is bullying the weak, and she's talking about others? However, what was wrong with this woman's brain? Was she crazy? She's helping me. Something's wrong. In truth, Yi Xian didn't know that he'd almost become an ordinary sword cultivator. At that time, he'd only had one thought in his mind. And that was to draw his sword. Even if he died, he had to draw his sword. However, he hadn't expected the door of disaster to suddenly appear. On the other side of the door of disaster, Xianxia stared at her. "Who are you?" The door of disaster narrowed its eyes. "My name isn't something a beast like you can know." Xianxia shook his head and smiled. In this world, there are always people who think they're infallible and powerful. Little do they know that she's like a frog at the bottom of a well. She doesn't know how big the sky is. As he spoke, he looked at the door of disaster. Arrogance is just an appearance. Its essence is ignorance. Ignorance isn't scary. What's scary is when a fool doesn't know his own ignorance. Yi Xian immediately gave Xianxia a thumbs up. Well said. The door of disaster glanced coldly at Yi Xian, and then looked at Xianxia. Now I finally understand why this shameless slut can live so comfortably. It's because her enemy is stupid. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly disappeared on the spot. In the distance, Xianxia's pupils suddenly shrank. He took a step forward and punched. Boom! A bolt of blood lightning suddenly exploded on Xianxia's fist. Rumble! Xianxia's entire right hand exploded. At the same time, he retreated several tens of thousands of meters away. As soon as he stopped, a bolt of blood lightning fell straight down from his head. Seeing this, Xianxia was horrified. He stomped his right foot, and his entire body became illusory. Boom! The bolt of blood lightning missed, but the mountains below it were directly reduced to powder. Xianxia turned around and saw that Xianxia was just a few hundred meters away. Xianxia's eyes were filled with shock. "Who the hell are you?" he discovered that his physical body was as fragile as a piece of paper in front of the blood lightning. The gate of adversity slapped out with its palm, and a bolt of blood lightning tore through the battlefield. In the distance, the vicious beast's expression changed dramatically. He suddenly leaped up and punched out with his left hand. Heaven shaking. With a punch, a fist aura instantly swept through the entire world. His fist smashed into the blood lightning, and a powerful force gushed out of his fist like a volcanic eruption. Boom! The bolt of blood lightning trembled violently, but in the next moment, the beast retreated several tens of thousands of feet. The space in front of it and the door of misfortune had been completely annihilated. Not only that, but its entire left arm had exploded as well. Both his arms were gone. The beast's expression was ferocious. He glared at the door of disaster. Who are you? He basically knew all the experts in the Nether River Star Field. It could be said that apart from Li Jueqing, no one in the Nether River Star Field could crush him. The door of disaster looked at the beast coldly. Do you think you're qualified to know who I am? As she spoke, she was about to attack the beast again, but the ferocious beast turned around and fled, disappearing into the horizon in the blink of an eye. The door of disaster was about to give chase, but it seemed to have thought of something and stopped. Why did it chase after him? Did it have nothing better to do? The door of disaster turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Why did you help?" He still did not understand. This woman was definitely not that kind. The door of disaster said calmly, "Didn't I say? I hate people who bully the weak." Yi Xian said angrily, "Bullsh *t. You hate people who bully the weak? When you came to attack me, weren't you bullying the weak?" The door of disaster was expressionless. I hate people who bully the weak, but I don't hate myself for bullying the weak. Is there a problem? Motherf ***. Hearing this, Yi Xian almost went berserk. Damn it, was this something a human could say? The door of disaster clapped its hands and returned to the prison pagoda. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian said, "Little heir, that white-armored woman was also a protector of the laws. Between you and her, who is stronger?" The door of disaster said, "Don't ask. If you ask, then I'm invincible." Yi Xian was speechless. Inside the prison pagoda, Xiaoda shook his head. "Little heir, after following the young master for so long, you've learned to be shameless." The door of disaster was speechless. Yi Xian did not dwell on why the door of disaster attacked him. He put away his sword and flew into the distance. On the way, Yi Xian's expression was a little heavy. After the battle with the beast, he realized that he still had many shortcomings. It was not enough to enter the mortal realm with one sword, he needed to enter the mortal realm with his whole body. Soon, Yi Xian left the Great Desolate Mountain Range. As soon as he left the Great Desolate Mountain Range, he encountered the swordsman. The swordsman looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "You're out." Yi Xian nodded. "Big brother." At this point, he suddenly stopped. Big brother? He was a little confused. He had told the door of disaster that the swordsman was his big brother, but that was not the case. He did not expect that he would call him big brother. This was a little awkward. Big brother? The swordsman looked at Yi Xian with a smile that did not seem like a smile. Yi Xian smiled awkwardly. "Calling me senior is a little distant, so in my heart, senior is my big brother." "Senior, you don't mind, right?" The swordsman smiled. "If it was someone else, I would mind. But since it's you, I don't mind. After all, you're quite to my liking. However, this seniority, forget it. You and I are both swordsmen, why should we care about these customs of the world?" Yi Xian smiled. "Big brother." The swordsman nodded slightly. He looked at Yi Xian. "You have a sword that allowed you to enter the mortal realm." Yi Xian nodded. "I comprehended that sword when I was on the brink of life and death, but I have not entered the mortal realm." The swordsman chuckled. "That's already very good. The current you is only half a step away from entering the mortal realm." Yi Xian asked in a deep voice. "How can I enter the mortal realm?" The swordsman smiled. "Think more, comprehend more, learn more and fight more." Yi Xian was silent for a moment, then nodded. "I understand." The swordsman continued. I wanted to accompany you for a while longer, but I encountered something, so I might have to leave first. Hearing the swordsman's words, the door of disaster in the prison pagoda suddenly raised its head, its eyes filled with surprise. But soon, that surprise turned into solemnity. Although Yi Xian had become very strong, he was still no match for her. Therefore, before the swordsman left, it was very likely that he would kill her first. Thinking of this, the door of disaster's expression gradually turned ugly. Outside the prison pagoda, Yi Xian was slightly stunned when he heard the swordsman's words, then said, "Big brother, you're leaving?" The swordsman nodded. "This universe is too weak. It's really boring to stay here. I want to wander around. If I can encounter that universe's law, that would be great." The disaster law, Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, "Big brother, will we meet again in the future?" The swordsman smiled. "I think we will." Yi Xian smiled. "Then we'll meet again." The swordsman nodded. He glanced at Yi Xian's abdomen. With this woman's strength, even if you become immortal, you might not be able to resist her. Do you need me to help you kill her? Inside the prison pagoda, the door of disaster slowly clenched its fists. Outside the prison pagoda, Yi Xian laughed. "Since it's a disaster cause, then let me face it myself." The swordsman glanced at Yi Xian and smiled. "Just as I thought. However, I'll still do you a small favor." He glanced at Yi Xian's abdomen. "Within a year, you can't attack my little brother. After a year, you can attack him. Is there a problem?" Inside the prison pagoda, the door of disaster hurriedly shook its head. No problem. She knew that the swordsman wanted her to train Yi Xian. However, this was exactly what she wanted. Because this way, she wouldn't have to die. Only by staying alive would she have a future. Outside the prison pagoda, the swordsman suddenly opened his palm. Within Yi Xian's body, something seemed to have disappeared. Yi Xian looked at the swordsman. The swordsman smiled. "From now on, you can use both of your bloodlines. In addition, you can also recultivate your body and your sword. Don't worry about anything else. Now that you're half immortal, your thinking has undergone a qualitative change. Even with the power of your bloodline and your body, you won't lose yourself." Saying this, he paused. Whether it's the power of your bloodline or your body, these are all your own powers. However, you can't rely on them too much. Of course, forget about your body and bloodline, you can't even rely on your sword. Yi Xian was puzzled. "I can't even rely on my sword?" The swordsman smiled. "Yes." Yi Xian hurriedly asked. "Why?" The swordsman smiled. "After you enter the mortal world, you'll slowly understand." Saying this, he turned to look at the horizon. "Little guy, it's time to part." Saying this, he turned into a sword ray and disappeared into the horizon. Yi Xian looked at the horizon. At this moment, the door of woe suddenly said, "Stop looking. He's already tens of thousands of star sectors away." Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Little heir, how strong is my big brother?" The strength of the three swords had always been a mystery. The door of woe was silent. How strong was that swordsman? She didn't know. Because he only needed one sword to kill her. At this moment, Yi Xian retracted his gaze. He shook his head and smiled. "Forget it. I'll just cultivate my body." Saying this, he took out Xiaota. "Xiaota, where's the blood of the horned girl?" Xiaota was about to speak. At this moment, the door of woe's expression suddenly changed. "B** to run." Yi Xian was stunned. "What the hell?" The door of woe said angrily, "Idiot, run. A law guardian is tearing through the star sector and rushing here." Yi Xian was confused. "Law guardian? No, shouldn't you be happy that a law guardian is rushing here?" The door of woe's voice grew louder. "Idiot. I can't explain it to you anymore. If you don't run, just wait for your death. The other party isn't like me, where most of my strength was sealed by that swordsman. The other party is in peak condition. Peak condition. Do you understand?" Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, "Can I beat him?" The door of woe roared. "Fight your ass. Do you know that beast just now? If it wanted to kill him, It only needed a glance. She's in peak condition. Do you understand? Yi Xian was speechless. The door of woe said angrily, Big brother, your big brother is already far away. You don't have the capital to act tough anymore. Can't you just King run? Xiaota suddenly said, Little misfortune, watch your manners. Manners? The door of woe was furious. You stupid tower. If you talk to me about manners again, I'll die with you. I've had enough of you two weirdos. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. Yesterday's request for criticism. I've been dealt a blow. Let's change it today. I'm asking for a compliment. One also, there were a few winners yesterday. I left messages for you, but you didn't come to me. Chapter 1543. Yi Xian did not hesitate and immediately flew away on his sword. A law guardian at its peak. He did not forget what kind of existence the door of adversity was at its peak. However, what puzzled him was why the door of adversity was more anxious than him when there was a new law guardian looking for him. Could it be that there was a conflict between the laws of the universe? Without thinking too much, Yi Xian increased his speed to the maximum. At this moment, the door of adversity suddenly said, From the left. Enter that black hole and escape by tearing through space. Yi Xian headed to the left. As if thinking of something, he hurriedly said, Little E, your speed is faster. Why don't you do it? The door of adversity coldly said, The reason why that woman has not found this place yet is because she is unable to determine your location. If I come out, she will be able to locate you immediately. Yi Xian said in a low voice, How does she know I am here? The door of adversity was silent for a moment before saying, It should be because I attacked earlier. Yi Xian asked, Is she also from the Universe God Court? The door of adversity said, Yes. Yi Xian was confused. Then shouldn't you be happy? The door of adversity was silent. Yi Xian said again, You have a grudge with her. The door of adversity said indifferently, It's none of your business. Yi Xian was delighted. This woman definitely had a grudge with that law guardian. At this moment, the door of adversity suddenly said, There is a black hole in space ahead. Enter it and use the black hole to teleport. Yi Xian was hesitant. Would this woman trick him? At this moment, Little Ta suddenly said, Little Master, there is a dangerous existence approaching. It is very dangerous. Very dangerous. Yi Xian did not think further and immediately transformed into a sword light and entered the black hole. The moment he entered the black hole, Yi Xian's expression changed. This was because he felt a powerful force tearing his body apart. Yi Xian hurriedly used his sword domain to block the tearing force. Not long after Yi Xian disappeared, a woman suddenly appeared in the sky above the great desolate mountain range. The woman wore a long black dress. The long dress was as black as ink, completely black. The woman looked to be around 18 or 19 years old. Her head of fine black hair was tied up with a black ribbon. She looked very refreshing. Her eyebrows were slightly light, and they went up along with the flow, like two swords standing above her eyes. At the tip of her right hand, a flying dagger was circling around her finger. After the woman appeared, she glanced around and smirked. Is he gone? Interesting. At this point, she seemed to have noticed something and suddenly turned around. In the next moment, she disappeared. In the depths of the great desolate mountain range, the beast that was recuperating suddenly stood up. Just as it stood up, a woman appeared in front of it. The ferocious beast narrowed its eyes when it saw the woman. Who are you? The woman smiled and said, I ask, you answer. The ferocious beast stared at the woman. You are. At this point, the beast's left arm suddenly flew off, and blood spurted out like a pillar. The beast was shocked and looked at the woman in disbelief. The woman smiled. Have you seen a woman in a red dress? The beast hurriedly nodded. Yes. She was with a young man. The woman frowned slightly. With a young man? Is that young man an emergency body? The beast nodded. Yes, yes. The woman's frown deepened. She didn't kill that young man? Hearing this, the beast became excited. She didn't kill that young man. Not only did she not kill him, she's even helping him. Helping? The woman blinked. She hurt you because she helped that young man? The beast hurriedly nodded. Yes. The woman chuckled. That's interesting. Could it be that this woman has turned traitor? In the distance, the beast didn't dare to speak again. Being beaten up by 2 women in a day, he had never felt so aggrieved. Right at this moment, the woman turned around and said softly, "That woman should have sensed my arrival. That's why she took that young man away." The beast hesitated for a moment and said, "Are you going to kill that young man?" The woman looked at the beast and smiled. "Can I?" The beast hurriedly said, "Of course you can. But that woman in the red dress is protecting that young man." The woman smiled. "Don't worry. She can't protect that young man." At this point, she seemed to have noticed something and disappeared on the spot. Seeing that the woman had disappeared, the beast immediately heaved a sigh of relief. This woman was too terrifying. He felt that she was even scarier than that hot-tempered woman from before. The beast looked up at the sky and a trace of confusion flashed in his eyes. Am I really that weak? Right at this moment, the space above his head suddenly split open. The next moment, 3 women appeared not far in front of him. They were Mu Niannian and the other 2. They found this place because the swordsman was no longer suppressing Yi Xian's bloodline power. The mysterious woman found this place based on Yi Xian's undying bloodline. But as soon as they found this place, Yi Xian's aura disappeared again. The beast frowned when he saw Mu Niannian and the other 2. Where did they come from? The mysterious woman looked at the beast. Have you seen a young man? The beast was slightly stunned, and then he said, "The young man with the calamity body?" The 3 women became slightly excited when they heard this. The mysterious woman in the lead hurriedly nodded. "Yes." The beast said in a low voice, "He was here before, but I don't know where he went now." Nian Nian looked at the mysterious woman. "Can you sense his aura?" The mysterious woman glanced over, and a moment later, she said in a low voice, "I can only sense a little. Moreover, he's getting further and further away from us. It doesn't seem like he's on his way." Nian Nian was about to speak when the beast suddenly said, "Are the 3 of you here to kill that young man as well?" The 3 women looked at the beast when they heard this. The beast cupped his fists. "To tell you the truth, I've already made a move against him before. Unfortunately, I was stopped by a woman. Otherwise, I would have blown his head apart. What a pity." The mysterious woman suddenly said, "You've made a move against him?" The beast hurriedly said, "Yes. If that woman hadn't interfered, I would have blown his head apart." Right at this moment, Tu suddenly blasted out with his fist. Mu Niannian slashed out with his sword. The mysterious woman directly charged out. Not long after, miserable and shrill cries resounded from the depths of the great desolate mountain range. After a long time, the beast's miserable voice suddenly resounded from the depths of the great desolate mountain range. What exactly did I do wrong? On the other side of the clouds, a certain space suddenly split open, and in the next moment, a woman walked out. It was the woman in a black dress. Not far away from the woman in a black dress stood a woman in white armor. The woman in a black dress looked at the woman in white armor and said with a smile, "So it's Yexin. I never expected that you would be here as well." The woman called Yexin said indifferently, "Mu Xiaodao, what are you doing here?" Mu Xiaodao smiled. "Do you believe that I'm here to look for you?" Yexin was expressionless. "Do you want to fight?" Mu Xiaodao was about to speak when she suddenly frowned. "You deliberately let me discover you. You're stalling for time for that youth." Yexin didn't say anything. Mu Xiaodao suddenly shook her head and smiled. "I heard that little E is also helping that youth. This is really interesting." Yexin frowned slightly. "The door of calamity is also helping that youth? That doesn't make sense." Mu Xiaodao suddenly said, "Is that law on you?" Yexin looked at Mu Xiaodao with a calm expression. "Do you really want to know?" Mu Xiaodao smiled. "I was being nosy. Farewell." With that said, she turned around and disappeared into the horizon. She didn't dare ask any further because if the law was really on Yexin, then she would definitely die. Although the law of the universe that Xian was guarding was already injured, it wasn't something that she could resist. Seeing Mu Xiaodao leave, Xian said softly, "Whether you live or die is up to you." With that said, she turned around and disappeared into the horizon. In a certain spatial black hole, Xian was flying through it on his sword. He didn't know where he was going either. In any case, escaping was the right thing to do. At this moment, the door of calamity suddenly said, "To the right, there's a spatial black hole there. You can use that spatial black hole to escape." Xian turned around and glanced at it. He hesitated for a moment, and then he directly rode his sword to the right. It didn't take long for him to leave the black hole in the starry sky. After he left, he glanced at the surroundings. The starry sky around him was silent. It was an unfamiliar star region. And not far in front of him, there was a spatial black hole. This spatial black hole was enormous and occupied half of the starry sky. Any star that came here would be devoured by it. The door of calamity suddenly said, "Go in quickly." Xiaota said, "Young master, that dangerous aura is getting closer." Xian chose to believe in Xiaota. He didn't hesitate and directly entered the spatial black hole. As soon as he entered, he was directly sucked into the depths of the spatial black hole. Xian hurriedly used his sword domain to block. Xian's expression gradually turned solemn. This was because he realized that the power of the spatial black hole was very strong. His sword domain could only barely block it. This was not the power of dark energy, but a mysterious power. He didn't know what it was exactly. As though he thought of something, Xian asked again, "Little heir, what law's guardian is looking for me?" The door of calamity said coldly, "What law's guardian? You can't even beat it." Xian frowned slightly. "Aren't you looking down on me too much?" The door of calamity said angrily, "Can you stop being so arrogant? If not for that swordsman helping you block some of the calamity law's power, you would be dead now." Xian said in a deep voice, "Is Big Brother still helping me block it?" The door of calamity said, "Nonsense. Otherwise, do you think you can survive until now?" However, he has already left. Furthermore, he's getting further and further away. "Oh no." At this point, her expression suddenly changed. *CK. He didn't help you block it? Xian blinked. "Really?" Just as he finished speaking, some blood-red threads suddenly appeared around him. Upon seeing this, Xian's expression changed. *C, little heir, hurry up and think of a way to help me block these calamity laws' power. The door of calamity's face twitched as she said angrily, "I'm the calamity law's guardian, not your guardian. You want me to help you think of a way to deal with the calamity law? Are you kidding me?" Piss, I'm late? Oh my god. How exciting. Chapter 1544. Xian came to his senses when he heard the law of misfortune's words. This woman is on the same side as the law of misfortune. At this moment, the surrounding space suddenly trembled. Xian frowned slightly. What's going on? The law of misfortune's expression turned ugly. Damn it, this black hole is going to self-destruct. Xian's expression changed drastically. Are you kidding me? Can this black hole self-destruct? The law of misfortune said angrily, why can't it self-destruct? After a black hole devours too many stars and matter, its energy will reach a limit, and then it will explode. Xian said solemnly, under normal circumstances, how long does it take for such a black hole to explode? The law of misfortune said, a few million years, or even longer. Xian's expression was incomparably ugly. Damn it, in other words, I actually encountered a black hole that only explodes once every few million years? The law of misfortune fell silent for a moment, and then said, it has nothing to do with you, it's because of the law of misfortune. The law of misfortune. Xian suddenly came to his senses. Right, how can I be so unlucky? It's all because of the law of misfortune. In the surroundings, the black hole in the starry sky suddenly began to expand, and the mysterious power seemed to be multiplying. Seeing this scene, Xian's expression changed drastically. If this black hole explodes, Then not to mention him, even the body of the ferocious beast would be pulverized. At this moment, the law of misfortune suddenly said, "Hurry up and escape." Yi Xian raised his speed to the limit, and at this moment, the law of misfortune said, "It's too late. This black hole will completely explode in at most a dozen breaths of time." Yi Xian, the law of misfortune suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian, and she glared coldly at Yi Xian. "I really want to take you down with me, you bitch." As she spoke, she directly grabbed Yi Xian's shoulder, and in the next moment, she and Yi Xian transformed into a blood-red bolt of lightning and vanished at the end of the starry sky. She naturally did not want to save Yi Xian, but she had no choice but to do so. Only by hiding in Yi Xian's body could she avoid Mu Xiaodao's pursuit. If it was under normal circumstances, she would naturally not be afraid of Mu Xiaodao, but the problem was that she was not normal at the moment. One must know that when the swordsman left, he did not remove the 2 strands of sword qi left between her brows. The suppressed her was not Mu Xiaodao's opponent. She had fought with Mu Xiaodao her entire life. If she were to fall into Mu Xiaodao's hands now, it would be a fate worse than death. The moment the door of adversity made its move, Mu Xiaodao, who was in a certain space behind them, suddenly raised her head and looked into the distance. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Has it made its move? Speaking up to this point, she frowned slightly. Logically speaking, this woman should have come to pick a fight with me when she met me. Why did he choose to escape? Could it be that he's injured? As she spoke, her eyes flashed with a strange light, and in the next instant, her entire body turned illusory, entering an unknown starry region. Xiao Er's speed was much faster than Yi Xian's. Under her lead, the 2 of them escaped before the black hole exploded. Just as the 2 of them escaped, the black hole behind them exploded. Boom! In an instant, the starry region that the 2 of them were in began to be annihilated inch by inch. The adversity law did not dare to stay any longer. Grabbing onto Yi Xian's shoulder, they once again disappeared at the end of the starry sky. Behind the 2 of them, the starry sky began to be annihilated bit by bit. The starry sky exploded. Looking at the scene behind him, Yi Xian's heart was filled with shock. Was this the power of nature in the universe? In this vast universe, humans are really insignificant. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian turned to look at Xiao Er. "Xiao Er, if we join forces, can we beat that woman?" Xiao Er glanced coldly at Yi Xian. "That woman plays with knives. More than 100,000 years ago, her knife was already an ordinary knife." Yi Xian blinked and then said, "Pretend I didn't say anything. Let's run." Xiao Er stomped her foot, and a bolt of lightning suddenly exploded under her feet. In the next moment, she and Yi Xian directly disappeared in the deepest part of the starry sky. Yi Xian asked again, "Xiao Er, you guardians of the laws of the universe should also have strong and weak ones. Who is the strongest?" Xiao Er was expressionless. "Me." Yi Xian was speechless. "Damn, this Xiao Er is also starting to be shameless." Xiao Er suddenly said, "I can't stay outside anymore. Otherwise, that woman can use my aura to find me. I have to return to the pagoda." Yi Xian nodded, "All right." Xiao Er directly returned to the prison pagoda, while Yi Xian continued to fly on his sword. At this moment, Xiao Er said again, "Running like this is not a solution. Qingqing, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors above, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as the crown prince shall be removed, and Yi Lang shall take over." The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind him stood a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the Yi clan's elders. "Why?" At this moment, a timid voice suddenly rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a hint of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling and was Yi Xian's biological sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she ignored her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is the crown prince. Why did you remove him for no reason? The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. This is a matter of the clan. Why are you interrupting? Yi Ling was obviously afraid and did not dare to look at the great elder, but she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan, and his life is uncertain. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to remove his crown prince position. This is really unfair. Impudent. The great elder suddenly raged. Whether he is removed or not, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this moment, the new crown prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The great elder said coldly, then flog 30 times. Soon, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now he is fighting for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince Yi Lang, and he knew that this was his chance to show off. The guard sneered, Young Master Yi Lang inherits the crown prince position, and it is everyone's wish. What are you shouting for? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up, but she did not cry. She just held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. I'm Zhang Mu, greeting the crown prince. Yi Lang nodded. You're not bad. After I become the crown prince, I need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed deeply. I'm willing to go through fire and water for the crown prince. Yi Lang nodded slightly. Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall, so don't show any mercy. Do you understand? Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something and he suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe that was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. This person was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from the South Mountain. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his expression was frighteningly dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his expression turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his expression changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there and charged towards Zhang Mu once more. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's expression turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and snarled, Your man? As he spoke, he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's appearance, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed out. Brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage, and in the next instant he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Qingqing, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides there were the Yi clan elders. Why? At this time, a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian from his position, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, "Great elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince. Why did you discard him for no reason?" The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting for?" Yi Ling was obviously afraid, and did not dare to look at the great elder, but she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides. "Elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan, and we don't know if he's dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to discard his position. This is unfair." "Impudent!" The great elder suddenly raged. "Whether he discards his position or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time, the new prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. "You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The great elder replied coldly, "Then flog her 30 times. Soon, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he is fighting for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the title of prince, and it's the wish of everyone. What are you shouting for?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the prince, I need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed deeply. This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince, even if it means death. Yi Lang nodded slightly. "Drag him out. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't show mercy, understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu seemed to see something, and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and the robe was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his face darkened. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang, and just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Ping! Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there, and charged towards Zhang Mu once more. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and snarled, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me." Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Ping! Chapter 1545. The Nine-Dimensional Universe. Speaking of the nine-dimensional universe, one had to mention a clan. The Undying Emperor clan. In the entire nine-dimensional universe, there was only one super clan, the Undying Emperor clan, known as the #1 clan in the universe. In the entire nine-dimensional universe, other than the nine-dimensional Tendo, the Undying Emperor clan had no natural enemies. This ancient clan had been invincible for millions of years. Even the nine-dimensional Tendo had to give face to this clan. In the Undying Realm, a drop of burning blood essence slowly floated into the Undying Realm. The moment this drop of blood essence entered the Undying Realm, the entire Undying Realm was shocked. Blood call. This was the supreme secret technique of the Undying clan. Ordinary people did not have the qualifications to learn it. Was it a blood call? At this moment, an old man appeared in front of the drop of blood essence. When he saw it, his expression changed and he said excitedly, "It's the third young lady. The third young lady's bloodline." As he spoke, he escorted the drop of blood essence into the depths of the Undying Realm. The third young lady. Countless experts of the Undying clan were dumbfounded. Who was the third young lady? An old man suddenly said with a trembling voice, "It's the third young lady. It's her." In the past, the Undying clan had two outstanding talents. One of them was the third young lady. The third young lady was very popular in the Undying clan because she was approachable and did not put on any airs. Of course, she was also the most mischievous and often mischievous. Unfortunately, that was a long time ago. The young people of the Undying clan did not even know who the third young lady was. The old man escorted the drop of blood essence to the Undying Palace, then slowly retreated. There was only one woman in the Undying Palace. The woman wore a black, tight-fitting robe, and her beautiful hair was tied up high behind her head. Between her brows, there was an air of dignity. This person was the current leader of the Undying clan, Dong Lijing. Looking at the drop of blood essence in front of him, Dong Lijing slowly closed his eyes and said softly, "Third sister, that man's child." His voice was filled with complex emotions. Everyone knew that the Undying Emperor clan was the #1 clan in the universe, but very few people knew that this #1 clan had once faced a crisis. The crisis of almost being exterminated. That man had killed his way from the 6th dimension all the way to the 9th dimension, causing the undead race to tremble in fear. At that time, the patriarch of the Undying race died in battle, more than 30 Heaven Realm experts fell, and several hundred Deity Realm experts were instantly killed. The Undying world collapsed, and not only the Undying world, the entire 9th dimension almost collapsed. Even the Undying Emperor clan's ancestor was unable to stop that man's footsteps. In that battle, the Undying Imperial clan's core bloodline was nearly exterminated. If it wasn't for her third sister, she would have been killed in that battle as well. After a long time, Dong Lijing suddenly opened his eyes. "Issue the Undying Order. Tell the elders of the 10 worlds to come see me immediately." Very quickly, within the Undying realm, 10 black tokens soared into the sky, straight into the depths of the starry sky. Once the Immortal Order was out, all the worlds would submit. In less than a quarter of an hour, 10 super powerhouses entered the Undying Great Hall. 6 men and 4 women. Apart from these 10 people, there were 2 more old men in the Undying Hall. They were sitting not far from Dong Lijing. These 2 were the Undying clan's supreme elders, Dong Lizhua and Dong Lixing. The 2 had been in closed-door training for more than 1,000 years, but this time, they had come out early. Dongli Jing opened his palm, and the mysterious woman's drop of blood appeared in his palm. He looked at the crowd. You should already know the specifics. What do you think? Everyone in the hall was silent. What do they think? The undying imperial clan naturally didn't have a good impression of that green-robed man. He was the one who had almost exterminated the undying imperial clan. At this moment, the supreme elder Dongli's was suddenly said, "That young man has 2 bloodlines?" Dongli Jing nodded, "Yes." Dongli's were frowned. "How is that possible?" Dongli Jing said, "He indeed has 2 bloodlines." Dongli's was said softly, "A miracle." At this moment, Dongli Xing suddenly said, "Third Miss, why did you suddenly come to find us?" Dongli Jing said in a low voice, "That young man is in trouble." Dongli Xing frowned. "That man is here, who dares to cause trouble for him?" Dongli Jing shook his head. "That man isn't here." As she spoke, she glanced at the crowd. "Third sister wants us to lend a hand." Dongli Xing said in a low voice, "He is that man's son." Dongli Jing glanced at Dongli Xing, "But he has the bloodline of our undying imperial clan. Moreover, he is third sister's son." Dongli Xing sighed softly and didn't speak. Dongli Jing glanced at the crowd. "I know that all of you hate that green-robed man, but to be honest, our undying imperial clan doesn't have the strength to take revenge on him. Besides that child might be an opportunity for our undying imperial clan." An opportunity? Everyone looked at Dongli Jing when they heard this. Dongli Jing said softly, "Since our ancestor, no one from our undying imperial clan has been able to break through their bloodlines. However, this young man might be able to. If he breaks through his bloodline and brings our undying imperial bloodline to a new height, then our entire undying imperial clan will benefit." Hearing this, the expressions of the people in the hall became slightly excited. Why was the undying imperial clan so strong? It was because of their bloodline. But now, their bloodline had become their shackles. Because it had been a very, very long time since anyone had been able to break through their bloodline. If someone was willing to break through their undying bloodline, then the entire clan's bloodline would be able to break through their shackles. Simply speaking, if someone was able to break through the shackles of their undying bloodline, then it would be equivalent to raising the upper limits of the undying imperial clan's bloodline and allowing the undying imperial clan to become even stronger. Meanwhile, someone suddenly asked, "Patriarch, what realm is that young man at?" Dongli Jing spoke softly, "The Dao Formation realm." The expressions of everyone here instantly became extremely unsightly when they heard this. The Dao Formation realm. That's too low. Even a sweeper from the undying imperial clan has a higher cultivation realm than that. And now they're inviting him back to be their young master? The undying imperial clan couldn't afford to lose face like that. Meanwhile, Dongli Jing added, "According to third sister, he attained mortal attainment in the sword when he was being pursued by a ferocious beast in the Nether River starfield." Mortal attainment? The expressions of everyone here changed violently when they heard this. Meanwhile, Dongli's was suddenly stood up, and his eyes were filled with viciousness. A ferocious beast from the lower planes actually dared to pursue and kill the young master of my undying imperial clan? Guards! As soon as he finished speaking, a guard suddenly appeared here. Dongli's was spoke fiercely, "Immediately lead our forces to the Nether River starfield and slaughter all the ferocious beasts there. No, let's destroy that star field." The guard bowed slightly, "Yes." As soon as he finished speaking, he was about to turn around and leave. Meanwhile, Dongli Jing spoke abruptly, "Forget it." Dongli's gazed at Dongli Jing and he spoke softly, "The karma of slaughtering a starfield is too great. Moreover, his true enemy isn't the people of that starfield. The Cosmos Divine Court. The Cosmos Divine Court." The expressions of everyone here changed when they heard this. There were very few existences in the boundless universe that the undying imperial clan feared, and the Cosmos Divine Court was one of them. Dongli Jing gazed at them. "Are we protecting him or not?" Dongli's was spoke solemnly, "Why is the Cosmos Divine Court targeting him?" Dongli Jing gazed at Dongli's wa. "Because he doesn't just possess 2 bloodlines, he even possesses the constitution of calamity." Constitution of calamity. Everyone in the hall glanced at each other. Protect him. Right at this moment, Dongli Jing spoke abruptly. It has been 800,000 years since anyone from our undying imperial clan has broken through the bloodline shackles. This youth is our chance. Because it's very likely that he's fused the bloodline of our undying imperial clan with the mad demon bloodline. Once they fuse, his undying bloodline will definitely reach new heights. Moreover, this youth has already become immortal at such a young age. In other words, he might become an invincible swordsman like his father in the future. As he spoke, he gazed at Dongli Jing. We must protect him. Dongli Jing said, even if we become enemies with the Cosmos Divine Court? Dongli Jing roared with laughter. So what? We'll just do it. Dongli Jing turned around and glanced at everyone. Do you have any objections? Everyone shook their heads. Dongli Jing suddenly spoke. Men. As soon as he finished speaking, an old man appeared in front of Dongli Jing. Dongli Jing was expressionless. Immediately inform the 7th and 8th dimensions. Tell them to drop everything and use all their power to search for our undying imperial clan's young master. After finding him, protect him at all costs. Whichever universe he's in, our undying imperial clan will exterminate that universe. The old man bowed respectfully. Understood. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned illusory. Dongli Jing looked at the elders in the hall. Elders of the 10 worlds, the 10 of you will drop everything and send all the experts of the 10 worlds to the lower realms to search for him. You will go personally. Remember, protect him at all costs. We cannot let him die in the hands of the Cosmos Divine Court. The 10 people bowed. Understood. As soon as they finished speaking, the 10 people disappeared from the hall. Dongli Jing suddenly spoke again. Big Dipper. As soon as he finished speaking, an armored woman appeared in front of Dongli Jing. Dongli Jing looked at the woman. How many undying imperial army soldiers are there in the clan now? The woman was expressionless. 69. Dongli Jing said, immediately recall everyone and personally lead a team to the lower realms to search for the young master. If he's found, the undying imperial army must obey the young master unconditionally. Big Dipper replied, understood. As soon as she finished speaking, she disappeared. Dongli Jing suddenly spoke again. Nan Xing. As soon as he finished speaking, a man appeared in front of Dongli Jing. Dongli Jing looked at Nan Xing. You are in charge of the intelligence network of our undying imperial clan and the 10,000 worlds. Now, I want you to use all your power to search for him. Remember, he's being chased by the Cosmos Divine Court. He's definitely in a difficult situation. So, you have to be quick, understand? Nan Xing said solemnly, I've already ordered all the intelligence network leaders to drop everything they're doing and start searching for the young master. As he said this, he paused. I'll personally make a trip to the Tianji God sect to ask for their help. However, I'm afraid this sect won't offend the Cosmos Divine Court. Dongli Jing stared at Nan Xing. Tell the Heavenly Arcanum sect that if anything happens to our undying imperial clan's young master, our undying imperial clan will slaughter the entire Heavenly Arcanum sect. Nan Xing bowed slightly. Understood. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared on the spot. Dongli Jing slowly closed his eyes. According to what I know, he has the disaster body, and is currently being targeted by the disaster law. Elders, immediately activate our undying imperial clan's undying blood formation, and then forcibly block the power of the disaster law. That's all. However, we'll continue tomorrow. Will it work or not? If it doesn't work, I'll commit seppuku as an apology. Chapter 1546. Somewhere in the starry sky, the mysterious woman withdrew her gaze, because she sensed that her drop of blood essence had returned to the undying imperial clan. At the side, Mu Niannian said, How is it? The mysterious woman said softly, I have informed the undying imperial clan. As for what they do, it is up to them. Saying that, she looked into the distance. Our top priority now is to find him. Saying that, she disappeared into the starry sky. Tu coldly looked into the distance. No one knew what she was thinking. Mu Nianyan said softly, Miss Tu, our current enemy is the law of disaster and the mysterious force behind her. Tu was silent. Mu Nianyan said again, let's go. Saying that, she turned into a sword light and disappeared into the distance. Tu was silent for a moment, then disappeared into the distance. Somewhere in the starry sky, Yi Xian was flying on his sword. Actually, he was a little panicked, because he sensed a dangerous aura, and that aura was getting stronger and stronger. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian said, Xiao Er, how far is she from us? Xiao Er said, if you stop, she will appear in front of you in 10 breaths of time. 10 breaths of time. Yi Xian's expression became solemn. He only had 10 breaths of time. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly looked into the distance. In the depths of the starry sky, he sensed the aura of life. There was someone. Yi Xian immediately sped up. Not long after Yi Xian disappeared, a woman suddenly appeared in the starry sky. Mu Xiaodao. Mu Xiaodao looked into the distance and smiled. Are you escaping? I love cats catching mice. As soon as she finished speaking, she disappeared. In the distance, Yi Xian had just entered the starry sky with life when a young man suddenly appeared in front of him. The young man shouted angrily, Who are you? How dare you trespass into the great thousand world? I don't want. The young man's voice stopped abruptly because a sword was pressed against his forehead. Yi Xian looked at the young man. The young man blinked. Big brother. You've passed. I didn't see anything. Yi Xian was stunned for a moment before he said angrily, Are you that spineless? The young man smiled bitterly and said, Big brother, I'm just a doorkeeper, and I've just been appointed. Don't make things difficult for me. It wasn't easy for me to get to where I am now. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, the gate of adversity suddenly said, She's coming. Yi Xian's expression changed when he heard this, and he directly transformed into a ray of light that vanished into the distance. The young man instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Yi Xian vanish. He was almost killed on his first day in office. Right at this moment, a woman suddenly appeared soundlessly in front of the young man. The young man's expression changed drastically when he saw this. This woman was Mu Xiaodao. Mu Xiaodao raised her head and looked into the distance. A moment later, her eyebrows slightly furrowed. Has the aura disappeared? The young man stood to the side, not daring to breathe. Mu Xiaodao suddenly said, What realm is this? The young man hurriedly said, Boundless world. The corner of Mu Xiaodao's mouth lifted slightly. Let's see how you escape. As soon as she finished speaking, she took a step forward. With this step, her entire body disappeared into the starry sky. In the starry sky, the young man's mind was in a mess. Somewhere in a city, Yi Xian walked among the crowd. This chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page. At this moment, his aura had been completely concealed with the help of Xiao Ta and Xiao Er. It could be said that he was now an ordinary person. As long as he did not expose his aura, it was basically impossible for the other party to use their divine sense to find him. After all, Xiao Ta and Xiao Er were not simple characters. Yi Xian looked around. He also did not know what city this was. He only knew that the boundless world was very, very big, bigger than the fifth dimension. He randomly found such a city in the endless boundless world. As long as he did not expose his aura, it was basically impossible for the other party to find him. At this moment, Xiao Er suddenly said, Remember not to attack. Once you attack, you will immediately expose your aura. Once you expose your aura, with your current distance from her, her flying knife will stab into your head in half a breath. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Then do we continue to hide like this? Xiao Er said, That's the only way for now. Yi Xian walked into the distance. After walking for a while, he suddenly said, Xiao Er, you guys are from the Cosmos God Court. Then, this Cosmos God Court only has the laws of the universe and you guys as the protectors of the laws? Xiao Er sneered, What do you think? Yi Xian frowned slightly, Is there anything else? Xiao Er said indifferently, Take a guess. Yi Xian, Xiao Er said again, this Mu Xiaodao came to find you. Do you know what this means? Yi Xian was a little curious. What does it mean? Xiao Er said, it means that another universal law has made a move against you. Yi Xian. At this moment, Xiao Er suddenly said, from now on, you should try to keep a low profile. Because you have a disaster on you, anything you do might bring about bad consequences. Yi Xian nodded, I will try to keep a low profile. As soon as his voice fell, at this moment his face changed drastically, and he hurriedly retreated. Just as he retreated, a powerful force suddenly blasted in front of him. Rumble! Yi Xian was directly blown away. He did not dare to use his own strength to resist, so he was directly blown away. But fortunately, this force was not particularly strong, so he did not suffer too much. In the ruins, Yi Xian crawled out. He was a little confused. Someone is deliberately targeting me. Yi Xian looked up into the distance. Not far away, there stood a woman. The woman was about 20 years old, wearing a black and red dress. Her hair was tied into long whips. Her whole person looked particularly hot. Opposite the woman, there was also an old man. Yi Xian frowned. Fuck, I don't know these two. At this moment, the woman in the distance suddenly said angrily, Grandfather, Feng Shui will not marry that Lin family's good-for-nothing son. The old man frowned slightly, a little displeased. Girl, go back with me. Feng Shui said coldly, I will not go back with you. The old man was about to speak. At this moment, a young man appeared beside Feng Shui. The young man looked at Feng Shui, smiled. Sister Shui? Feng Shui suddenly said angrily, Lin Su, my name is Feng Shui. I'll tell you today, Feng Shui, already have someone I like. I will not marry you. Lin Su said with a smile, Sister Shui, I know, you're deliberately angering me, you don't have anyone you like. Feng Shui glared angrily at Lin Su. At this moment, she glanced at the surroundings, and suddenly pointed at Yi Xian who had just climbed out of the nearby ruins. I'll tell you, I like him. Hearing this, Yi Xian directly jumped up. He was slightly stunned, and he was astonished in his heart. Little heir. Fuck, isn't your law of disaster a bit too ridiculous? Is this how you play it? Within the prison pagoda, Little Heir's expression was slightly unsightly. She said angrily, Who allowed you to watch the show? Let me tell you, in any case, you are not allowed to make a move. This chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page. If you make a move, that woman will stab your head with a flying knife. Yi Xian. At this moment, Feng Shui suddenly ran over to Yi Xian. She directly hugged Yi Xian's arm, and then looked provocatively at the distant Lin Su. Lin Su, I like him. Lin Su's gaze gradually turned gloomy when he witnessed this scene. Feng Shui was his fiancée, yet she was actually hugging a man's arm in broad daylight. Lin Su's eyes were filled with killing intent. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly glanced coldly at Feng Shui. Fuck off. Fuck off. As soon as this voice resounded, everyone here was stunned. Feng Shui was slightly stunned as well. This man told me to fuck off? Yi Xian gazed at Feng Shui. Miss Feng Shui, have you thought about your Feng clan when you did this? Feng Shui stared fixedly at Yi Xian. What do you mean? Yi Xian laughed coldly. What do I mean? I can understand that you don't like Brother Lin, but why did you humiliate Brother Lin? Do you know that your actions earlier aren't just an insult to Brother Lin and his Lin clan, it's an insult to your Feng clan as well? Have you ever thought that your willfulness might cause our clans to become enemies? Feng Shui spoke angrily. Are you trying to teach me how to do things? The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled into a ridiculing smile. Teach you how to do things? Do you think your grandfather and Brother Lin can't tell that you randomly picked a man to be your shield on the streets? As he spoke, he gazed at Lin Su. Brother Lin, forgive me for speaking bluntly, but this kind of unruly and willful woman isn't worth it. Lin Su glanced at Yi Xian. You are? Yi Xian walked over to Lin Su and smiled. I'm Yang Xian, people call me Young Master Yang. Yang clan? Lin Su frowned slightly. I don't think I've heard of it. Yi Xian was about to speak when Feng Shui suddenly ran over to Yi Xian and said angrily, You damnable man, you actually dare to say that I'm unruly and willful. Do you not want Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said angrily, "Stay away from me." As he spoke, he hastily retreated to Lin Su's side, his right hand tightly grabbing onto Lin Su's sleeve. When he looked at Feng Shui, his eyes were filled with disgust, as if he had seen something extremely disgusting. Seeing this scene, everyone was somewhat dumbfounded. As for Feng Shui, she was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. Feng Shui glared at Yi Xian, her eyes filled with killing intent. "You dare to humiliate me." Yi Xian glanced coldly at Feng Shui. "Women, there isn't a single good thing. Men are still the best." As he spoke, he turned to look at Lin Su. The disgust in his eyes instantly turned into a trace of strangeness. Men are still the best. Hearing this, Feng Shui was stunned. Lin Su was stunned as well. Feng Shui looked at Yi Xian, she blinked her eyes. You like men?" Yi Xian glared at Feng Shui and said angrily, Can't I? Can't I? Can't I like men? Don't you know that the opposite sex is only for reproduction, and the same sex is true love?" Feng Shui's throat rolled. At this moment, Lin Su, who was beside Yi Xian, quietly pulled back his sleeve that Yi Xian had grabbed. He moved a few steps to the side, he glanced at Yi Xian. "Brother Yang, I still have matters to attend to, farewell." "Farewell." After speaking, he turned and left, walking very quickly, and as he walked, he took off his clothes. At the side, Feng Shui glanced at Yi Xian, she hesitated, a trace of apology flashed in her eyes. "Sorry, I didn't know you like men." "I'm really sorry." Inside the prison pagoda, Xiao Er was silent for a long time. She gave a thumbs up. "You really are a goddamn talent." End of this chapter. Chapter 1547. Seeing that Lin Su had left, Yi Xian also turned to leave. If they were to fight, these people really wouldn't be his match. But it was completely unnecessary. He didn't want to be used by this woman. At this moment, Feng Shui suddenly stood in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian frowned slightly. He really didn't have a good impression of this woman. To be honest, he really wanted to cut this woman down with his sword. This woman used him as a shield, completely not considering his life or death. Think about it, if he was an ordinary person, what would the result be? He would definitely die. Previously, he had already felt the killing intent from Lin Su's eyes. Feng Shui glanced at Yi Xian. "Still angry?" Yi Xian was expressionless. "Move aside." Feng Shui said softly, "I really didn't know you liked men." Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, Feng Shui suddenly approached Yi Xian and grinned. "Actually, I think what you said is very right." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "What's very right?" Feng Shui blinked. "The opposite sex is only for reproduction, the same sex is true love." Yi Xian was speechless. Feng Shui looked around, then said softly, "Actually, I like women." Hearing this, Yi Xian was dumbfounded. F***CK, this is really F***King explosive. Feng Shui sighed softly. "Unfortunately, no one can understand me." Saying that, she looked at Yi Xian. "Is it wrong to like women?" Yi Xian was speechless. Feng Shui suddenly said, "Yang Xian, you're not an ordinary person, right?" Yi Xian looked at Feng Shui. "What do you mean?" Feng Shui said seriously, "When you faced me and Lin Su, there was no fear in your eyes. There's only one explanation, and that is you have confidence. So, you're definitely not an ordinary person." Yi Xian smiled. "I'm just an ordinary person. Miss, I still have things to do, so I'll take my leave." Saying that, he turned around and left. He did not want to provoke this woman. She seemed to be in her rebellious phase. It was better not to provoke her. Feng Shui didn't stop Yi Xian. She looked at Yi Xian's back as he left, deep in thought. After Yi Xian left, he immediately found an empty courtyard. In the courtyard, he sat cross-legged on the ground and said in a deep voice, "Little heir, can you predict what will happen to me next?" Xiao Er, "Yes." Yi Xian quickly asked, "What's going to happen to me next?" Xiao Er said, "You will be enlightened after this, and immediately reach the level of a true mortal sword." Hearing this, Yi Xian was overjoyed. "Are you kidding me?" Xiao Er said indifferently, You were the one who joked with me first. Please, if I could predict the future, would I have ended up like this? Yi Xian's expression froze. After a short while, he said, aren't many extraordinary experts able to predict what will happen in the future? Xiao Er said, some experts who have reached a certain level can predict what will happen in the future. However, it's absolutely impossible for them to predict in detail. They can only predict the general situation. Moreover, it depends on the situation. For example, if the tribulation or the person related to the tribulation is too strong, then they won't be able to predict it. For example, that big brother of yours. He's not tainted by any karma. If he wants to kill someone, then the person who is killed will not be able to predict anything related to your big brother. Hearing this, Yi Xian said softly, I understand. Xiao Er continued, the future is uncertain, and it's exactly because of this that a person's life is meaningful. If a person's future is destined, then what's the point of his life? Yi Xian said softly, I thought that the Cosmos Court would make every single person's life. This chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. A person's fate is already determined. Xiao Er said, we're not that strong. What we protect is the order of the universe. Whether it's us or the universal laws, we're the guardians of the order of the universe. As for the Tao of destiny that you mentioned, everyone's destiny is actually different, and it's not fair. For example, some people are born with wealth. Their starting point is the end point that some ordinary people can't reach in their entire lives. Of course, it's not absolute. There are many people who can change their destiny through their own hard work. Therefore, everyone's destiny is determined at birth, but the future is not. Yi Xian asked, is there a destiny law? Xiao Er said, yes. The second is the destiny law. Yi Xian was a little curious, what about the first? Xiao Er said calmly, guess. Yi Xian's face darkened. Guess my ass. Xiao Er said, the duty of the destiny law is to protect the order of destiny and not let others control their own destiny. However, she's also injured now. Her power of law can no longer protect the Tao of destiny of this vast universe. Yi Xian frowned slightly, the destiny law is injured? Who did it? Xiao Er said coldly, you did it. Your sister did it. Yi Xian. Xiao Er's voice became colder. When that mysterious person forcibly reincarnated, not only did he injure the reincarnation law, but he also injured the destiny law and the karma law. Not only did he jump out of the order of the destiny law, but he also controlled the fate of that life. No, I should say, he implicated that life of yours. At this point, she suddenly sneered, however, this guy's luck is also bad. I guess he never dreamed that you have a sister who is even more heaven-defying than him. Your sister forcibly saved you and suppressed him. This guy is really bloody unlucky. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Xiao Er, that mysterious person can also defy the laws of the universe. My sister Qing, can also defy the laws of the universe. Who is stronger? Xiao Er said coldly, do you still need to ask this question? Yi Xian was a little puzzled. What do you mean? Xiao Er said, the one who lives well is stronger. Yi Xian was stunned, then shook his head with a smile. It was obvious that Qing was strong. Qing was not strong. The one who should be suppressed should be her. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian asked again, Xiao Er, from what you said, that mysterious person is also very strong. He can actually defy the laws of the universe. Xiao Er was silent for a moment, then said, he is the first person to defy the laws of the universe. Yi Xian asked, do you know his identity? Xiao Er said lightly, I don't know. Yi Xian blinked. Actually, in that case, you and I are both victims. Since we are all victims, why do we hurt each other? Isn't it better for us to join forces to kill that mysterious person? Xiao Er said angrily, we are the victims. You are not a victim. Your sister and that father of yours are worse than that mysterious person, especially your sister. She defied the laws of the universe more than that mysterious person. Not only does she want to defy the laws of the universe, she also wants to kill the laws of the universe. Yi Xian was speechless. If you don't mess with me, Qing, or will not target you. Xiao Er suddenly said, why don't you come with me to the Cosmos God Court to plead guilty? Let's settle this peacefully. Yi Xian blinked and said with a smile, sure. Xiao Er quickly said, are you sure? Yi Xian smiled, I will bring my brother and Qing there, we will settle this peacefully. Xiao Er's expression instantly turned cold. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly raised his head. In the sky, there was a powerful, this chapter is not finished, please flip the page, the aura spread over. At this moment, Xiao Er's expression changed greatly, not good. That woman is using the misfortune law to find you. She is forcefully sensing the misfortune law. If she can sense it, she can use the misfortune law to find you. Because in this world, you are currently the only misfortune body. Wherever the power of the law of calamity is, it's definitely where you are. Yi Xian's expression sank. Do you have any solution? Xiao Er was silent for a moment, said, call your brother here. Yi Xian, Xiao Er said, it is not too late to call him now. Yi Xian smiled bitterly, I want to call him too, but I don't know where he went. Xiao Er was stunned, then said, you can't contact him? Yi Xian nodded, he can contact me, but I can't contact him. Xiao Er said angrily, just wait for your death. Yi Xian spread his hands, if this woman finds me, do you think she will let you off? Xiao Er was furious, you think I am afraid of her? Yi Xian blinked, Miss Xiao Er, of course you are not afraid of her, but you are still being suppressed. If that woman takes advantage of you, what will you do? In the World Prison Pagoda, Xiao Er's expression was extremely ugly. Take advantage of me? That woman will definitely take advantage of me and humiliate me. Thinking of this, Xiao Er's expression became even uglier. Yi Xian hurriedly said, quickly think of a way. Xiao Er was expressionless, what else can I do? Just screw her and be done with it. Xiao Er blinked, can the two of us beat her? Xiao Er said coldly, even if we can't beat her, we have to. Yi Xian was speechless. Listening to this woman, she might not be able to beat her. Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, why don't you help me stall her? I will go find reinforcements. Xiao Er sneered, let me tell you, if we live together, if we die together. Do as you see fit. Yi Xian, Xiao Ta suddenly said, Xiao Er, are you going to live and die with the young master? Wow, don't tell me you like the young master. Xiao Er suddenly flew into a rage. Stupid door, shut up. Xiao Ta floated to the 9th floor. It chuckled, come and hit me then. Yi Xian. Soon, a series of explosions rang out in the prison pagoda. Yi Xian was about to speak. At this moment, Xiao Er suddenly stopped. She suddenly looked up. After a moment, her eyes narrowed slightly. Someone is helping you resist the disaster law. Yi Xian hurriedly said, who? Is it my big brother? Xiao Er shook her head. No, if it was your big brother, he would have chopped that woman with a sword. What's the point of blocking? Yi Xian frowned slightly. Then who could it be? Xiao Er said solemnly, it's not a person, the other party is using an array to help you resist. A trace of confusion flashed in Yi Xian's eyes. Array? Xiao Er looked at Yi Xian. You really don't know? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know. Xiao Er glanced at Yi Xian, silent. This guy doesn't look like he's lying. Just how many helpers does this guy have? Endless helpers. In the starry sky, Mu Xiaodao raised his head, his expression cold. Who is resisting the power of the disaster law? Do they not want to live? After a moment of silence, a voice came from the endless starry sky. Undying Emperor Clan, please kill me. End of this chapter. Chapter 1548. Undying Emperor Clan? Yi Xian was dumbfounded. Which faction was this? At this moment, Xiao Er said softly, why would this clan help you block the disaster laws? Yi Xian asked quickly, Xiao Er, do you know this clan? Xiao Er said after a moment of silence, they are known as the #1 clan in the universe. At this point she frowned, you don't know them? Yi Xian shook his head, I don't. Xiao Air said after a moment of silence. Damn. I almost forgot about the bloodline in your body. You are from the Undying Emperor clan. Yi Xian. At this moment, Xiao Air said, run. Yi Xian looked up at the sky. The Undying Emperor clan can't stop this woman? Xiao Air said angrily, stop my ass. The Undying Emperor clan is in the 9-dimensional universe, which is several universes away from here. How can they stop this woman? Yi Xian thought for a moment, then turned and ran. At this moment, Yi Xian was extremely shocked. The 9-dimensional universe. There really was a 9-dimensional universe. He couldn't understand why a faction in the 9-dimensional universe would protect him. Could it be his mother's clan? But Duguxian was just an ordinary woman. Moreover, Duguxian didn't seem to have the bloodline of the Undying. Could it be that his birth parents were someone else? Thinking of this, Yi Xian felt a headache. He almost couldn't figure out whose son he was. In the starry sky, Mu Xiaodao looked at the depths of the starry sky, his eyes cold. Undying Emperor clan. In the depths of the starry sky, a figure condensed. It was the patriarch of the Undying Emperor clan, Dongli Jing. Void projection. And his body was several universes away in the 9-dimensional universe. Dongli Jing looked at Mu Xiaodao, his expression calm, law protector. Mu Xiaodao smiled. What? Your Undying Emperor clan wants to protect this youth called Yi Xian? Dongli Jing said calmly. So what? Unyielding. The Undying Emperor clan had existed for millions of years. Other than that time when they met the green-robed man, they had never been afraid. Although they were wary of the Cosmos God Court, they weren't afraid. Of course, a large part of the reason for this confidence was because of the green-robed man. This Yi Xian not only possessed the bloodline of the Undying Imperial clan, he also possessed the bloodline of the green-clothed man. In other words, the Undying Imperial clan was standing together with the green-clothed man. So what if I am? A cold smile appeared on Dongli Jing's face. It seems like your Undying Imperial clan has been very arrogant these past few years. As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her palm, and the flying dagger in her hand flew out. In the distance, Higashi Yasushi's projection vanished, but the flying dagger didn't stop. It pierced through the starry sky, and wherever it passed, space was annihilated inch by inch. Even the cosmic barrier couldn't stop it. In just a few breaths of time, the flying knife had already arrived in the sky above the undying world of the 9-dimensional universe. Then, it struck the undying blood array. Boom! The entire undying blood formation trembled violently and then was annihilated inch by inch. The flying dagger had already disappeared. The expressions of the experts from the Undying Imperial clan turned unsightly when they witnessed this scene. Higashi Yasushi suddenly said in a cold voice, "I'll go meet her. All of you, reconstruct the formation. You must help him block the laws of calamity." As soon as she finished speaking, she took a step forward and pulled her hands forward. The space in front of her was torn apart by her hands, and then she stepped into the spatial rift and vanished in the blink of an eye. After Higashi Yasushi left, Dongli's was suddenly said, "Reconstruct the formation." It didn't take long for another grand formation to rise slowly from within the Undying Imperial clan. The Kiliacosm. Mu Xiaodao opened her palm, and a flying dagger flew back into her hand. At this moment, her expression was extremely gloomy. She'd almost found Yi Xian just now. However, she'd been stopped by the Undying Imperial clan. The Undying Imperial clan. Mu Xiaodao was quite puzzled. Why would this ancient clan suddenly help Yi Xian? After a moment of silence, Mu Xiaodao turned around and glanced around. She didn't sense the auras of Yi Xian or Xiao Air. They've escaped again. Mu Xiaodao suddenly raised her palm into the sky. In the next moment, a ray of red light shot into the sky and shot into the starry sky. On the other side, within Yi Xian's body, Xiao Air suddenly said, "Not good. That woman is calling for the Universe Enforcer." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Universe Enforcer?" Xiao Air said solemnly, "Yes. Within the Universe God Court, there's a mysterious team called the Universe Enforcer. They frequently patrol the universe and specifically kill those who destroy the order of the universe. For example, those who reincarnate and are reborn. Yi Xian asked, "Are they powerful?" Xiao Er said, "With your current strength, you can barely become a universe enforcer." Yi Xian's expression darkened. This woman called Mu Xiaodao is actually calling for people. She's too shameless. Xiao Er said coldly, "Although I don't like that woman, please, when it comes to calling for people, who can compare to you, young Master Yi?" Yi Xian was speechless. Yi Xian didn't continue bickering with this woman. He looked around and said, "Miss Xiao Er, where do we escape to?" Xiao Er said, "We can't escape." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Xiao Er said solemnly, "You can't fly a sword, and you can't use Xian Qi. Otherwise, that woman will immediately sense you." Yi Xian's expression was a little ugly. "So I can only wait for death." After a moment of silence, Xiao Er said, "Can you help me remove the sword qi that swordsman left in between my eyebrows?" Yi Xian blinked. What a joke. The reason why this woman was standing with him now was because she was currently weaker and couldn't beat the woman who played with knives. If this guy recovered his strength, needless to say, he would definitely be twinned. Xiao Er said calmly, "Then I have no other way. Think of a way yourself." Yi Xian thought about it and said, "Miss Xiao Er, what's the personality of this woman who plays with knives?" Xiao Er laughed coldly. "What? Do you want to use your shamelessness to defeat her?" Yi Xian laughed embarrassedly. "I'm just asking. After all, as my enemy, I should at least understand her personality, right?" Xiao Er said flatly, "Don't think about all that fancy stuff. This woman isn't as stupid as you think. You're dreaming if you want to deceive her." Yi Xian was speechless. Before he knew it, Yi Xian had arrived at a mountain range. Actually, he was slightly panicking because the law of disaster was too mysterious. It caused trouble at the slightest provocation. Suddenly, the sounds of battle resounded from afar. Yi Xian's expression instantly changed when he witnessed this, and he immediately turned around and left. Meanwhile, the door of disaster suddenly roared angrily, "Hurry up!" Yi Xian said furiously, "Go my ass. Little Ernie, can you talk to the misfortune law and tell it not to play like this? If you have the ability, then fight me openly. Why are you doing such despicable things?" Xiao Er said coldly, "Are you sure you want her to come over and fight you in person?" Yi Xian blinked. "Can she come over?" Xiao Er said calmly, "Her law of disaster is on you. What do you think?" Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, Xiao Da suddenly said, "Young master, don't be a coward. There's nothing to be afraid of. We'll just fight." The corners of Yi Xian's mouth twitched. F***ck, he really wanted to beat this Xiao Da to death. At this moment, an explosion suddenly came from afar. The next moment, a figure rushed out from the dense forest in the distance. It was a young man in his 20s. His body was covered in injuries, and it was obvious that he had experienced a huge battle. The young man staggered toward Yi Xian. He was about to speak when he spat out a mouthful of blood. Yi Xian turned around and left. His instincts told him that something bad had happened. Damn it! Right at this moment, the young man suddenly strode forward and grabbed the young man. "Brother!" Yi Xian was speechless. The young man withdrew a spatial ring and stuffed it into Yi Xian's hand. His voice trembled as he said, "Brother, do me a favor and send this to the southern city's Xiao family." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he said, "I'm in a very difficult position." The young man hurriedly said, "No, I won't help you for nothing." As he spoke, he withdrew a huge pile of crystals and placed them in front of Yi Xian. "Brother, do me this favor and all of these are yours. Moreover, the eldest young miss will reward you handsomely." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he withdrew a spatial ring. "Have a look." The young man glanced at it, and he was stunned in the next moment. There were hundreds of millions of top-grade energy crystals in the spatial ring, and they were all of the highest quality. The young man gulped. "Brother, this..." Yi Xian gazed at the young man and spoke seriously, "Brother, I'm not interested in money. The young man felt suffocated, and he spat out another mouthful of blood. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he clenched his right hand tightly, and a strand of violet energy suddenly appeared in his palm. He could save this man's life. Meanwhile, Xiao Er suddenly said, I advise you not to save him. If you do, then something bad will definitely happen. Because if you save him, then it'll be a cause, and this cause will definitely be a bad cause. Yi Xian spoke solemnly in his heart, what if I don't save him? Xiao Er fell silent for a moment before she said, not saving him is also a bad cause. Something bad will definitely happen as well. Yi Xian was furious in his heart. Damn it. Xiao Er, tell me, is the law of disaster doing things to humans? She's forcing an innocent girl to become a prostitute. Xiao Er fell silent. She felt that doing this was going a bit too far. Xiao Er was shocked when she thought up to this point. How could I have such a thought? I'm the protector of the law of disaster. I should be steadfast in protecting the law of disaster. Outside, Yi Xian fell silent. Damn it. I can't save him, but I can't not save him either. At this moment, the young man slowly collapsed to the ground. He handed the storage ring to Yi Xian and begged, Brother, this is extremely important to my Xiao family. Please help me, and, as he spoke, he took out another storage ring and handed it to Yi Xian. This is my life savings. Please give it to my younger sister. Her name is Xiao Ling, younger sister. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression changed slightly. He no longer hesitated and opened his palm. A strand of purple gas floated into the young man's body. Boom! In an instant, the injuries all over the young man's body began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Within the prison pagoda, Xiao Er fell silent. She did not know what would happen next. The young man was a bit dazed. He looked at Yi Xian in disbelief. Brother, Yi Xian said, send it back yourself now. After saying this, he turned and left. The young man was stunned. He looked at Yi Xian who was leaving in the distance. No one knew what he was thinking. In the distant mountain range, Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings and smiled. There doesn't seem to be a problem. Xiao Er said indifferently, there will definitely be a problem. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, do you think I did anything wrong? Xiao Er said, what are you trying to say? Yi Xian smiled. Xiao Er, let's have a good chat. Do you think I did anything wrong by saving him? Xiao Er replied with a question. What if that man is an evil person? Yi Xian fell silent. Xiao Er said, there are two sides to everything. Most of the time, the good deeds you do might not be really good. Moreover, I have to remind you that good deeds might not necessarily be rewarded in this world. In the Milky Way world, people who do good deeds are often extorted. Yi Xian blinked. You know about the Milky Way world as well? Xiao Er said indifferently, of course I do. However, the Cosmos God Court doesn't manage it. Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. But don't you manage the entire universe? After a moment of silence, Xiao Er said, that place is a little special. A little special? Yi Xian was a little curious. How special? Xiao Er suddenly said angrily, why do you have so many questions? Is our relationship very good? Yi Xian. P.S. Hee. Chapter 1549. Yi Xian did not ask any more questions, because he discovered that this woman seemed to be becoming irritable again. A hot-tempered woman. Yi Xian began to speed up his pace. He was quite annoyed because he originally wanted to cultivate a Dao body. With the blood of the horned little girl, it would be very easy for him to cultivate Dao. But the problem was that he did not dare to cultivate at all. He did not know how terrifying Mu Xiao Dao was. But he knew how terrifying Little was. At his peak, Little was ridiculously strong. And Mu Xiao Dao, who was also a law guardian, was definitely not inferior to Little. Thinking of this, he was even more certain that he could not face Mu Xiao Dao head-on. He had to be as wretched as possible. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. He frowned and turned around. Not far away, more than a dozen auras were coming at him. Soon, more than a dozen people appeared in front of Yi Xian. The leader was a woman. She wore a black robe and held a sword in her hand. Beside the woman, there was a young man. Yi Xian recognized this young man. It was the young man he had saved before. Yi Xian's expression sank. They came with ill intentions. The young man smiled and said, "We meet again." Yi Xian smiled and said, "What's the matter?" The young man looked at the woman beside him. The woman walked not far from Yi Xian and said, "You have a kind of purple aura on your body." Yi Xian nodded and said, "Yes." The woman looked straight at Yi Xian and said, "And a lot of crystal stones." Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Sure enough, good karma can also have bad karma. The woman stared at Yi Xian and said, "Seeing that you saved my clansmen, if you hand it over, I can spare your life." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Miss, if I hand it over, you will immediately kill me to eliminate future troubles, right?" The woman's eyes narrowed and was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly said angrily, "You bunch of idiots." The woman and the others were dumbfounded by the scolding. Yi Xian angrily pointed at the woman, "Use your pig brain to think, to be able to have that kind of purple energy and so many crystals. How could an ordinary person be? Would it? Can't you guys grow some brains? Even if you're going to be a bad guy, can't you use your brain a little?" Speaking of this, he also felt a little sullen. Damn it. For the first time in history, he hoped that his enemy would be smarter. The woman looked at Yi Xian. "Then can you tell me who you are?" Yi Xian swiped the ground with his right hand. In an instant, countless treasures appeared in front of him. Among them were some supreme-grade treasures. His executing heaven sword, soul-suppressing sword, violet chi, and supreme-grade energy crystals. In addition, there were countless treasures of heaven and earth. Most of them were spoils of war from the past few years. The expressions of the woman and the others changed violently when they saw those treasures. Any one of these treasures in front of him was priceless. Especially that purple gas and those top-grade energy crystals, the degree of purity. At this moment, the hearts of the woman and the others surged like a tidal wave, and they were extremely shocked. Yi Xian pointed at those treasures. "See that? Am I an ordinary person?" The woman looked at Yi Xian. At this moment, there was a solemn and fearful expression in her eyes. Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief in his heart when he saw this. Obviously, this woman probably wouldn't make a move. Suddenly, the young man by the woman's side spoke abruptly, "Eldest young miss, there's only one reason why he said so much, and that's because he's afraid." Yi Xian was speechless. The woman looked at the young man, and the young man looked at Yi Xian and sneered. If he really isn't an ordinary person, then why would he waste his breath on us? He only said so much to scare us away. Yi Xian shook his head speechlessly. Xiao Er suddenly said, "Hold it, don't do anything." The young man continued, "Young miss, so many treasures are enough to change the fate of our Xiao family. In time, our Xiao family will definitely become the #1 family in South City. No, it'll become the #1 family in the entire world." Hearing this, the woman and the others instantly felt the blood in their bodies boil. The #1 family in the world. Just thinking about it makes me excited. Yi Xian fell silent. Xiao Er suddenly said, "A little impatience will spoil great plans." "Hold it." The young man spoke in a deep voice. "Young miss, riches come from danger. If we do this, our Xiao family will rise completely." As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. "Moreover, if we give up now, this person might take revenge on our Xiao family in the future. At that time, it'll be even more troublesome. Since that's the case, why don't we kill him now and take his treasures?" Yi Xian looked at the young man. "I saved you just now." The young man smiled. "Did I ask you to save me?" As he spoke, he shook his head with a smile. "I don't think I asked you to save me, right?" Suddenly, the young man's voice stopped abruptly. That was because a hand was gripping his throat. It wasn't Yi Xian. It was Xiao Er. Yi Xian was slightly stunned when he saw Xiao Er suddenly make a move. Xiao Er looked coldly at the young man whose face was filled with terror. "Is that what you're saying? I suddenly realized that although that bitch is cheap, she's not disgusting." But you make me extremely disgusted. Fuck you. As she spoke, she slammed the young man to the ground. Bang. The young man's head exploded, and blood sprayed violently. The woman and the others' expressions changed drastically when they saw this scene. Meanwhile, Yixian loosened his hand. He wanted to make the first move, but he didn't expect Xiao Heir to make the first move. The Xiao family's eldest young miss stared at Xiao Heir. Who are you? Xiao Heir ignored the eldest young miss and turned around to look. Not far away, a woman had appeared out of nowhere. Mu Xiaodao. Mu Xiaodao sized up Xiao Heir, and the corners of his mouth curled up. Xiao Heir, you don't seem to be in a good state. Xiao Heir looked at Mu Xiaodao. Give me 15 minutes. Mu Xiaodao smiled. Sure. Xiao Heir turned around to look at the Xiao family's eldest young Mississippi. You stupid woman. Are you brainless? That bitch can take out so many treasures at once. Is he an ordinary person? Did your IQ get eaten by a dog? The Xiao family's eldest young miss said in a deep voice, Senior, this is my Xiao family's fault. I apologize to the two of you on behalf of the Xiao family. Apologize? Xiao Heir said angrily, I don't accept it. As she spoke, she slapped out. Bang. The Xiao family's eldest young miss was directly destroyed by this slap. Xiao Heir slapped out again. In the distance, the Xiao family's experts were directly wiped out by a powerful force. After killing them, Xiao Heir clapped her hands. Comfortable. With that, she turned around to look at Mu Xiaodao. Let's begin. Mu Xiaodao's mouth curled up. Alright. As she spoke, she opened her palm, and the flying knife in her hand suddenly flew out. In the distance, Xiao Heir's expression turned sinister. She clapped her hands together, and a blood lightning exploded from her palms. The knife arrived. Bang! The blood lightning exploded apart, and Xiao Heir was instantly pushed over 10 kilometers back. Moreover, there was a deep gash on the right side of her face. Yi Xian's expression instantly became extremely solemn when he witnessed this scene. Damn it! This woman with the flying knife isn't just ordinarily ferocious. Mu Xiaodao opened her palm, and the flying knife returned to her hand. She gazed at Xiao Heir and smiled. Xiao Heir, why have you become so weak? Xiao Heir wiped off the blood on her face. She didn't waste her breath at all and suddenly vanished on the spot. A blood lightning tore through the surroundings. Mu Xiaodao's eyes narrowed slightly, and she pointed forward with the flying knife in her hand. Bang! An expanse of lightning suddenly erupted in front of Mu Xiaodao, and then a figure retreated explosively. This figure retreated over 30 kilometers away. The person who retreated was Little Heir. Xiao Heir's pupils constricted when she stopped moving. She suddenly moved to the side, and a cold ray of light flashed past her face. Xiao Heir gazed at Mu Xiaodao. Mu Xiaodao was looking at her with a spurious smile on her face, and the flying knife was still in her hand. On the other hand, a blood-red mark had appeared on the other side of Xiao Heir's face. Mu Xiaodao gazed at Xiao Heir and smiled. Xiao Heir, I'm really not used to you suddenly becoming so weak. As she spoke, she opened her palm, and the flying knife in her hand suddenly started to spin swiftly. In an instant, the entire heavens and the earth started to become illusory. Watch out for the flying knife. The heavens and the earth can't endure it. Mu Xiaodao gazed at Xiao Heir and smiled. Xiao Heir, you're going to die after this. Don't worry, I'll let you die with dignity. As she spoke, she was about to attack. However, Yi Xian suddenly said, Wait. Mu Xiaodao gazed at Yi Xian. Do you have a problem with that? Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. Miss, I think it's unfair. After all, Miss Xiao Heir isn't at her peak right now. Mu Xiaodao blinked. Fair? What's fair? Can it even be eaten? Yi Xian was flabbergasted. Damn it! I've encountered another shameless person. Mu Xiaodao sized up Yi Xian and smiled, one with the body of calamity. You seem to have quite a good relationship with Xiao Heir. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. Miss, I think that you would definitely feel a lot of regret if you killed Miss Xiao Heir just like that, right? After all, she isn't at her peak right now. Mu Xiaodao suddenly shook her head. No, I don't feel any regret at all. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, I really don't understand. Aren't all of you from the Cosmos Court? Why did you kill each other? As soon as he finished speaking, even he felt that it was quite absurd. Damn it. Isn't it a good thing for the Cosmos Court to kill each other? Mu Xiaodao sized up Yi Xian once more, and then she smiled. Actually, I don't understand it either. She's the guardian of the law of calamity, and you're the body of calamity. How did the two of you get together? At the side, Xiao Er suddenly spoke angrily, You're the one who got together with him. I have nothing to do with him. Yi Xian nodded. The two of us are innocent. We have nothing to do with each other. Mu Xiaodao blinked. Innocent? I didn't say that the two of you aren't innocent. Yi Xian was speechless. Mu Xiaodao glanced at Yi Xian and Xiao Er, and then she said, The two of you wouldn't have really gotten together, right? If that's the case, then I'm very shocked. In the distance, Xiao Er suddenly spoke coldly, Mu Xiaodao, are you trying to kill us with your mouth? Mu Xiaodao looked at Xiao Er and smiled, All right, no more nonsense. Xiao Er As soon as she finished speaking, the flying dagger in her hand suddenly flew out. In the distance, Xiao Er's pupils constricted, and she pressed her hands together. A blood-red lightning wall suddenly condensed in front of her. The flying dagger arrived. Bang! The blood-red lightning wall trembled violently. In the next moment, the blood-red lightning wall split apart, and the flying dagger flew past Xiao Er's chest. A stream of blood sprayed out. P.S. I was late yesterday, so I'll make up for it today. A real man should keep his word. I'm a man. Don't call me AB***. Chapter 1550. The knife pierced through her chest, and Xiao Er immediately retreated thousands of feet away. As soon as she stopped, blood slowly flowed out from the corner of her mouth. And on her chest, there was a knife wound. A powerful force was crushing the vitality in her body. Xiao Er hurriedly suppressed the force in her body. In the distance, Mu Xiaodao opened her palm, and the flying knife suddenly appeared in her palm. She looked at Xiao Er and smiled, I won't give you a chance. As she spoke, the flying knife in her hand suddenly flew out. In the distance, Xiao Er stared at the flying knife. She knew that she would definitely die this time. Because if she blocked this flying knife, the force in her body would instantly crush all her vitality. Am I going to die? Xiao Er slowly closed her eyes. She was somewhat unwilling to die like this. Because this was not her peak state. She was unwilling. But she was powerless. At this moment, she suddenly opened her eyes. In front of her stood a man. It was Yi Xian. Seeing Yi Xian blocking in front of her, Xiao Er was stunned. At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly flew in front of her, and the next moment, countless purple gas surged towards her like a tide. Yi Xian stared at the flying knife. Hurry up and heal. I'll help you block it. As he spoke, he directly rushed out. Fight. Have you seen Mu Xiaodao before? He was very clear that he couldn't beat him. But he must fight. Because once Xiao Er died, Mu Xiaodao's target would be him, Yi Xian. If he saved Xiao Er, and the two of them joined forces, there would still be a chance of survival. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly pulled out his sword and stabbed. Sword domain plus sword of life and death. This was his current strongest sword. The sword stabbed out. Boom. In front of Yi Xian, the sword light shattered, and he instantly retreated thousands of feet away. Just as he stopped, crack, the executing heaven sword in his hand directly cracked. Not only that, his whole body instantly cracked into a spider web, especially his face. At a glance, it was extremely terrifying. One blow almost destroyed his soul. Yi Xian took a deep breath. This woman was really King terrifying. Why were all the women he met so terrifying? In the distance, Mu Xiaodao glanced at Yi Xian. This sword is actually a mortal sword. Interesting. If this sword wasn't an ordinary sword, Yi Xian would definitely die. Yi Xian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and then turned to look at Little Air, who was not far away. At this moment, Little Air had recovered a lot with the help of the violet qi, but he still needed some time. Mu Xiaodao suddenly laughed and said, Looks like your relationship is really deep. Then she looked at Yixian. Take another knife attack from me. As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her palm and the flying sword suddenly flew out. When the saber was unleashed, the entire world seemed to have quietened down. Between heaven and earth, there was only the tearing sound of the saber. In the distance, Yixian's pupils suddenly shrank when he saw this strike. Invincible! That was the only thought left in his mind. Flee? As soon as this thought appeared, it was rejected by Yixian, and a wisp of viciousness flashed in his eyes. Flee my ass. Even if I die, I'll die with dignity. He took a step forward and stabbed with his sword. This strike was still a sword of life and death. Moreover, he'd forgotten about life and death when this strike was executed. Life was the strike. Death was the strike. Meanwhile, the flying saber arrived. Bang! An expanse of sword light and saber light suddenly erupted in front of Yixian, and the heavens and the earth split apart. Mu Xiaodao's eyes suddenly narrowed because Yixian's sword had actually blocked her saber in the distance. Yixian had used the cracked executing heaven sword to block her flying saber. At this moment, Yixian was calm like water, and there wasn't the slightest aura of the sword Dao on him. However, the executing heaven sword in his hand was trembling slightly. Mu Xiaodao looked at Yixian. The mortal realm. It wasn't the mortal realm, but the mortal realm. A realm that had jumped out of the realm. From this moment onwards, the realms set by the Dao scripture and others were no longer effective against Yixian. He had truly jumped out of the shackles of the realm. At this moment, Mu Xiaodao suddenly waved his right hand. Bang! Yixian instantly retreated thousands of meters away. After he stopped, Yixian spat out several mouthfuls of blood, but he was smiling. The mortal realm. He had truly reached the mortal realm. In the distance, Mu Xiaodao suddenly smiled and said, "You seem very happy." Yixian looked at Mu Xiaodao and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Why wouldn't I be happy? Mu Xiaodao blinked. I had already entered the mortal realm hundreds of thousands of years ago. Yixian shook his head. No. That's not what I'm happy about. Mu Xiaodao was slightly curious. Then what are you happy about? Yixian smiled and said, I'm happy that I can use external objects. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly opened his palm, and in the next moment, countless strands of sword energy shot out from within him. It wasn't his own sword energy, but the remnant sword energy that the green-clothed man had left behind tens of thousands of years ago. Mu Xiaodao's expression instantly changed when she saw the sword energy, and she held the flying saber between her fingers as she slashed it forward. The space in front of her was obliterated inch by inch. However, her attack wasn't able to shatter the sword energy, and the sword energy directly tore through her energy and slashed towards her. Mu Xiaodao's pupils constricted, and then she tapped the tip of her foot lightly and floated backwards. At the same time, the flying saber in her hand flew forward. Hiss! The saber tore through the sky and collided head-on with the sword energy. Meanwhile, one of the strands of sword energy slashed directly onto the flying saber, and it was instantly stopped. Meanwhile, another strand of sword energy slashed onto the flying saber. Bang! The flying saber was blasted flying. At this moment, Mu Xiaodao had already retreated 30 kilometers away. She opened her palm, and the flying saber appeared in her hand once more. But at this moment, the flying saber in her hand had split apart. Meanwhile, Yixian suddenly roared furiously, "Condense!" As soon as he finished speaking, the illusory strands of sword energy suddenly fused together and transformed into a sword of energy. It was a relatively condensed sword of energy. Yixian pressed his fingers together and pointed forward, slash. The sword of energy tore through the sky. Mu Xiaodao's eyes narrowed slightly, and there was a wisp of a solemn expression in the depths of her eyes. She didn't retreat. She took a step forward instead, and then she swiftly slashed the flying saber forward. Sky Destroyer! As soon as the saber descended, a 300 m long strand of saber energy suddenly appeared in midair, and then it descended in a straight line. At this instant, the heavens and the earth in the surroundings collapsed. Sky Destroyer. The entire world was shocked. The saber energy slashed directly onto the sword of energy. In an instant, the heavens and the earth trembled violently while the space in the surroundings was transformed into nothingness. Suddenly, the sound of cracking resounded. Mu Xiaodao's saber energy split apart and shattered, and then the sword of energy continued forward and slashed at Mu Xiaodao. A wisp of viciousness flashed through Mu Xiaodao's eyes, and then she suddenly opened her palm. God Slayer. As soon as she finished speaking, the flying saber in her hand suddenly flew forward, and it was like a cold light that caused the heavens and the earth to dim down. Moreover, this saber slashed directly onto the sword of energy. Bang! The flying saber exploded apart, and then a powerful aftershock swept through the sky. It was extremely swift, and it instantly swept through the starry sky that was 500,000 kilometers away, causing the entire starry sky to seethe with excitement. At the instant that the flying saber shattered, the sword energy tore through the sky and slashed straight at Mu Xiaodao. Mu Xiaodao's expression became ferocious, and then she slowly closed her eyes while an illusory saber suddenly appeared above her. As soon as this illusory saber appeared, the quintessence energy in the world started to disperse bit by bit. This illusory saber was already harming the quintessence of the universe. Mu Xiaodao suddenly opened her eyes and shouted furiously, "Divine fusion!" As soon as she finished speaking, her soul suddenly came out of its sheath. The next moment, her soul held onto the illusory flying saber and slashed forward. As the saber fell, the quintessence energy of the entire universe instantly dissipated at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. As for the world that Mu Xiaodao was in, it directly began to shatter. Under this saber, nothing could survive. Something worth mentioning was that when Yi Xian shot out that strand of sword energy, he'd already carried little on his back and ran. In order to block this sword energy, Mu Xiaodao did not hesitate to use her most powerful saber attack. In fact, she usually did not use this saber attack. This was because the lethality was too great, and it harmed the quintessence and the harmony of the world. However, at this moment, she had no other choice because this sword energy was simply too powerful. As this saber slashed down, the sword energy was finally forced to stop. However, in the next moment, Mu Xiaodao's pupils suddenly shrank because the flying saber in her hand began to be annihilated bit by bit. She still could not block it. Mu Xiaodao was greatly shocked, and she immediately shouted angrily, "Soul returns to God Slayer." As soon as she finished speaking, her soul returned to her body. As soon as her soul returned to her body, the illusory flying saber had vanished without a trace, and the sword energy had instantly arrived in front of her. At this critical moment, she used her hand like a saber, pointed forward, and shouted furiously, "Break!" Bang! Her right arm exploded apart while the powerful force of the collision blasted her over 100 kilometers away. As soon as she stopped moving, the energy sword had appeared in front of her once more. Her pupils suddenly constricted when she witnessed this scene. However, the energy sword had suddenly stopped when it was still half an inch away from the center of her forehead, and then it gradually dispersed into nothingness. Mu Xiaodao's eyes slowly closed. There was a mysterious force in front of her, and it was this mysterious force that had destroyed that strand of sword energy earlier. That mysterious force gradually started to disperse. Mu Xiaodao opened her eyes and gazed into the distance. Besides killing intent, there was a trace of seriousness and fear in her eyes. She knew that this strand of sword energy didn't belong to Yi Xian. But since it didn't belong to Yi Xian, then whose was it? A moment later, she lowered her head and glanced at her right shoulder. At this moment, her right arm had disappeared. Mu Xiaodao's eyes slowly closed, and no one knew what she was thinking. On the other side, Yi Xian was running madly with little and as he fled, he could still feel the intense battle behind him. At this moment, little suddenly said, "The battle is over." Stop. Yi Xian stopped, put little down, and then turned to look. "Is she dead?" Little glanced at the end of the horizon, and a moment later, she shook her head. No. The nomological energy behind her saved her. Yi Xian frowned slightly and he said angrily, "Damn it, she actually called for help. How King shameless." Little glanced at Yi Xian. "Don't you feel embarrassed when you say that?" Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 1551. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground and started to heal himself. Now, he started to use purple energy to heal himself. He who had already reached the mortal sword realm could use any external objects because he would no longer rely on them. His current state of mind was completely different from before. Of course, the main reason was that he had no choice but to use external objects. He really couldn't do it. At the side, Xiao Er was also healing herself. Her injuries were already mostly healed. Xiao Er glanced at Yi Xian. "Why did you save me just now?" Yi Xian said seriously, "We are good friends, friends help each other." Xiao Er suddenly said angrily, "Shut up." Yi Xian. Xiao Er looked at Yi Xian. "Let me tell you, in my current state, even if we join forces, we still can't beat that woman. Moreover, that woman also summoned the Cosmos Executioner. With their speed, they will arrive here soon." Yi Xian said solemnly, "Xiao Er, you are also from the Cosmos God Court? The Cosmos Executioner won't beat you too, right?" Xiao Er was expressionless. "They won't beat me, but they will beat you." Yi Xian was silent for a moment, then said, "Then what do you think we should do now?" Xiao Er looked at Yi Xian. "Get rid of Mu Xiaodao, get rid of the Cosmos Executioner, then get rid of the Cosmos God Court." Yi Xian hurriedly said, "You have a plan?" Xiao Er said angrily, "I have a chicken feather plan. Can you remember, I am from the Cosmos God Court? I am the protector of the misfortune law. Can you not ask me how to deal with the Cosmos God Court? We are really not on the same side." Yi Xian smiled awkwardly. "I almost forgot about that." Xiao Er looked coldly at Yi Xian. "Remember, I want to kill you. Be more careful." Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, "Then let's talk about how to deal with Mu Xiaodao." Xiao Er was silent for a moment, then said, "That can be done." Yi Xian glanced at Little Er. "Do you have any good suggestions?" Xiao Er looked at Yi Xian. "3 ways. The first one, you call your big brother." Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't know where Big Bro has gone to act cool. Tell me about the second one." Xiao Er pointed at the space between his eyebrows. "Help me get the sword aura that your brother left in my brain out. I'll fight her one-on-one, and you can sneak and attack from the side. You can definitely kill her." Yi Xian asked, "What happens after I kill her?" Xiao Er looked at Yi Xian. "Then I'll kill you." Yi Xian said, "Tell me about the third one." He knew very well that the reason he could coexist peacefully with Xiao Er now was because she was suppressed by the sword qi. If the sword qi was withdrawn, this woman would become even more terrifying than Mu Xiaodao. At that time, he might get mixed doubles. Little Er was expressionless. "The third way is to keep running. However, this is only a stopgap measure, because she will find you sooner or later." Yi Xian said, "I've already reached the mortal realm. If we join forces, can we kill her?" Xiao Er shook her head. Yi Xian was about to speak when Xiao Er suddenly looked up at the sky. She frowned. "She's here." As soon as she said that, the sky suddenly split open, and a woman walked out. It was Mu Xiaodao. At this moment, Mu Xiaodao's injuries were almost healed. Mu Xiaodao did not care about Xiao Er this time, but looked at Yi Xian. "Do you still have that kind of sword qi?" Yi Xian nodded. Mu Xiaodao stared at Yi Xian. "You don't have any more." As soon as she said that, the flying knife in her hand suddenly flew out and slashed at Yi Xian. In the distance, Yi Xian took a step forward and stabbed with his sword. It was just an ordinary sword. Bang! Yi Xian instantly retreated a few kilometers. But in the next moment, he suddenly appeared in front of Mu Xiaodao and slashed with his sword. Mu Xiaodao caught the flying knife with 2 fingers and blocked it. Bang! The heavens and the earth trembled. Yi Xian was blasted flying again. However, at the instant he was blasted flying, over a dozen sword qi suddenly appeared around Mu Xiaodao. The sword qi crisscrossed and shattered space. At this moment, Mu Xiaodao's body suddenly became illusory, and he was faintly visible. Those sword chi slashed at him. A short moment later, Mu Xiaodao's body condensed, and those sword chi were gone. Yi Xian's face sank when he saw this scene. Mu Xiaodao was about to attack when a bolt of blood-red lightning suddenly descended from above her head. Xiao Er had attacked. At this moment, she knew that she couldn't allow Mu Xiaodao to kill Yi Xian. Otherwise, she would die as well. If she joined forces with Yi Xian, they would have a chance at survival. Mu Xiaodao opened her palm, and the flying knife in her hand suddenly shot into the sky and slashed at the blood-red lightning. Bang! The blood-red lightning exploded apart and transformed into nothingness. Meanwhile, Xiao Er suddenly appeared in front of Mu Xiaodao. She used her hand like a knife and swiftly slashed at Mu Xiaodao. This slash was like a large knife as it slashed down fiercely at Mu Xiaodao. Mu Xiaodao's expression was icy cold. She charged forward and suddenly slashed with the knife with 2 fingers. Heda! Bang! The knife descended, and the blood-red lightning was instantly obliterated. Xiao Er instantly retreated explosively by 30 kilometers. Mu Xiaodao was just about to attack again when a sword chi suddenly appeared in front of her forehead. She tilted her head to the side and avoided this instant death strike by a hair's breadth. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of her, and a sword descended straight down from above her head. Mu Xiaodao's body suddenly became illusory. Yi Xian's sword slashed empty air. Yi Xian's expression instantly changed when his sword slashed empty air, and he suddenly stabbed towards the right. Bang! As soon as his sword stabbed out, Yi Xian felt his arm go numb while his chest felt suffocated. After that, his entire body was blasted flying, and he flew over 30 kilometers away. At the instant that Yi Xian was blasted flying, Mu Xiaodao's palm suddenly opened, and a flying knife pursued Yi Xian. The flying knife was like a thunderclap that tore through everything. With this strike, the world in the surroundings was obliterated inch by inch. Obviously, Mu Xiaodao intended to kill Yi Xian with this strike. Yi Xian's pupils constricted when he saw this strike. What a formidable strike! A trace of viciousness flashed through Yi Xian's eyes. He didn't retreat, and he took a step forward instead before drawing his sword and slashing. A sword of life and death. This strike slashed directly onto the flying knife, causing it to tremble violently before a powerful force erupted from it. Yi Xian's pupils constricted, and he hurriedly utilized his sword domain to suppress it. Bang! The powerful force within the flying knife was instantly suppressed by his sword domain, but his countenance had instantly turned pale. The strength of this strike had exceeded the limits of his sword domain. Right at this moment, Mu Xiaodao suddenly opened her palm, and then an illusory flying knife appeared in her hand. Mu Xiaodao gazed at Yi Xian. Go! As soon as she finished speaking, the flying knife shot straight at Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian was suppressing the flying knife, so how could he resist it? Right at this moment, a bolt of blood-red lightning suddenly flashed, and it smashed directly onto the flying knife. Bang! The flying knife shook violently, and then the blood-red lightning exploded apart. The flying knife shot straight at Xiao Er, who stood in front of Yi Xian. A wisp of viciousness flashed through Xiao Er's eyes, and then she suddenly pressed her palms together and stopped the flying knife. Bang! Xiao Er's figure shook violently while countless bolts of blood-red lightning exploded around her. At the same time, her body started to gradually become illusory. Her current strength was utterly insufficient to resist the might of this strike. At this moment, Mu Xiaodao opened his palm once more, and a flying knife condensed in his palm. Mu Xiaodao gazed at Xiao Er. Go! The flying knife suddenly shot forward. Another strike. Xiao Er's pupils constricted when she witnessed this scene, and then she slowly closed her eyes. After she was sealed by swordsmen, her strength was less than half of her peak strength. Under such circumstances, she was utterly unable to resist Mu Xiaodao, who was at his peak. Not to mention her current state, even she didn't dare say that she could defeat Mu Xiaodao at her peak. Now, she knew that she was really going to die. She wasn't afraid of death, but she was slightly displeased that she would have to die with this bitch behind her. However, it didn't matter. In any case, she and this bitch would both be annihilated, and no one would have a next life. At this moment, Yi Xian, who was behind Xiao Er, suddenly roared angrily. The next moment, he directly withdrew his sword domain and allowed the flying knife to pierce through his chest. However, he himself directly rushed in front of Xiao Er and stabbed forward with the executing heaven sword in his hand. The sword light cut through the knife light. Bang! The executing heaven sword in Yi Xian's hand suddenly exploded, and the flying knife directly penetrated his body. Bang! Yi Xian's body trembled violently, and then directly became illusory. Behind Yi Xian, Xiao Er opened her eyes. When she saw the scene before her, Xiao Er's eyes opened wide, and her entire mind went blank. Yi Xian slowly fell, and Xiao Er subconsciously caught him. Yi Xian was just about to speak when blood sprayed from his mouth, and his chest was instantly dyed red. Yi Xian looked at Xiao Er and smiled bitterly. I just reached the mortal realm. I thought I would finally be invincible. I didn't expect such an amazing person to come. Can't you give me a more normal enemy? This enemy is always several levels higher than me. I'm really angry. As he spoke, he spat out another mouthful of blood essence. Xiao Er looked at Yi Xian and did not speak. It was unknown what she was thinking. Yi Xian said softly, Am I going to die? Xiao Er nodded. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then said, I think I can still be saved. Xiao Er looked at Yi Xian. In this life I, Xiao Er, do not owe anyone anything. You saved my life, so I will return it to you. As she spoke, she stood up and looked at Mu Xiaodao, who was not far away. She slowly raised her hands, and in an instant, blood lightning surged in the horizon. At the same time, a tiny character appeared between Xiao Er's eyebrows. Mu Xiaodao's eyes narrowed slightly. Xiao Er, you're going to utilize the energy of the laws left behind by the laws of disaster. You have to think this through. The person behind you has the constitution of disaster, and utilizing the energy of the laws of disaster to save him is equivalent to going against the laws of disaster and the cosmos divine court. You will be sent into the boundless divine prison and be imprisoned for eternity. Xiao Er said furiously, I'll fucking think about it. I'm going to die, so what the fuck am I thinking about? As soon as she finished speaking, the character between her eyebrows suddenly floated out, and in the next moment, an extremely terrifying force suddenly appeared here. Xiao Er pointed furiously at Mu Xiaodao. Kill this bitch. As soon as she finished speaking, the character suddenly transformed into a blood-red bolt of lightning that slashed down towards Mu Xiaodao. Mu Xiaodao gave Xiao Er a thumbs up when he saw this scene. You really have balls. You used the energy of the laws of disaster to help the person with the constitution of disaster resist the laws of disaster. Just wait for your punishment. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and ran. Chapter 1552. The power of the disaster law did not stop. Instead, it directly chased after Mu Xiaodao. This time, Mu Xiaodao did not choose to take it head-on, because she knew that she could not withstand the power of this disaster law. Seeing Mu Xiaodao escape, little Ura's face was incomparably gloomy. After a moment, she turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian was lying on the ground motionless. Little Ura's brows slightly wrinkled. This guy can't really be dead, right? Little Ur quickly walked to Yi Xian. She sized up Yi Xian. Yi Xian was still motionless. Little Ur kicked Yi Xian. Stop pretending to be dead. Yi Xian was still motionless. Little Ur opened her palm. A bolt of divine lightning appeared in her hand. At this time, Yi Xian sat up. He smiled. How did you know I'm not dead? Little Ur kept the divine lightning, her face expressionless. I actually did not think that your bloodline is the Immortal Emperor clan's immortal bloodline. Immortal bloodline. Just now that saber strike, Yi Xian would have undoubtedly died, but the immortal bloodline forcibly saved him. Yi Xian shook his head. He also thought that he would undoubtedly die. Until the immortal bloodline began to repair his body, he then remembered that he originally had the immortal bloodline. This time, if not for the immortal bloodline, he would really be dead. As if thinking of something, Yixian suddenly asked, Little since I have the immortal bloodline, does it mean that I can exhaust that woman to death? Little coldly looked at Yixian. What kind of dream are you having? Yixian slightly frowned. Can't I? Little said, just now if she used another saber strike, your soul would immediately be destroyed. Although your immortal bloodline is heaven-defying, it is not invincible. As long as the strength is strong enough, it can end you before you recover. Yixian nodded. Understood. As he spoke, he turned to look at the end of the horizon. Can the power of the law that you created just now kill her? Ernie shook his head. No. He could only force her away temporarily, and she would soon catch up again. Also, at this point, she didn't continue. Yixian looked at Little You used the misfortune law to help me. You will be punished by the Cosmos God Court, right? Little Ernie was expressionless. That's my business. She then looked at Yixian and said, I didn't do it to save you. I just don't like that woman. Don't overthink it. Yixian looked at Little and frowned. Will you really be punished? Xiao said indifferently, That's my business. Yixian suddenly said, Little misfortune, why don't you stop following that law of disaster? Xiao slowly closed his eyes. You can go now. Yixian frowned. They want to punish you. Little Ernie glared at Yixian. If you don't go now, that woman will come here again after she exhausts my misfortune law. At that time, you won't be her match. Also, I can already feel that the cosmic enforcers are rushing here. In at most an hour, they will appear here. Yixian said in a deep voice, Let's go together. Little Ernie said angrily, Go my ass. I am the protector of the misfortune law. My duty is to protect the misfortune law and the Cosmos God Court. Yixian also became angry. They want to punish you. Little Ernie glared at Yixian. I made a mistake. I deserve to be punished. Yixian said angrily, Deserve my ass. Let's go together. Little Ernie stared at Yixian. His eyes were filled with anger. You only know how to go. Where are you going? Don't you know that if I follow you, it won't be Mu Xiaodao alone who will come? There will be even more powerful law protectors coming. Yixian roared. I'm not afraid. Little Ernie's chest heaved. She took a deep breath. Slut, I saved you because I don't want to owe you anything. Really, I don't have any other intentions. Also, I'm your enemy. Do you understand? Yixian looked at Little Ernie. You used the misfortune law to save me. This action is equivalent to betraying the misfortune law and the Cosmos God Court. They won't let you off easily. Little Ernie looked straight at Yixian. This is my choice. Yixian shook his head. Just as he was about to speak, Little Ernie said, Quickly go. The power of my law of disaster is already slowly dissipating. Once the power of the law of disaster completely disappears, that woman will immediately return. Also, the Cosmos enforcers are getting closer. If you don't leave now, you won't be able to leave later. Yixian said solemnly, If you stay here, Mu Xiaodao will kill you. Little Ernie looked up at the horizon. She said softly, He won't. Yixian frowned. But Little Ernie suddenly glared at Yixian. Can you stop being so wishy-washy? Quickly scram. Yixian was about to speak. At this moment, Little Ernie suddenly looked up at the horizon. The next moment, she grabbed Yixian's collar. She said angrily, You idiot. You can't leave now. As soon as she finished speaking, the space in the horizon suddenly tore open. The next moment, a black-robed man holding a staff walked out. Behind the black-robed man were 12 other black-robed men. These 12 black-robed men all had long blades on their waists. The 12 of them were wearing masks. Their real faces couldn't be seen. Cosmos enforcers. The 12 of them stood there without any aura. It was as if they didn't exist. The black-robed man's gaze landed on Little Ernie. Little Ernie has betrayed the God Palace. We are under orders to arrest you and send you to the boundless God prison. As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm. A pitch-black chain flew out from his palm and pointed straight at Little Ernie. Little Ernie was expressionless. She had no intention of resisting. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly stood in front of her. He drew his sword and slashed. Boom! The chain was immediately sent flying. The black-robed man looked at Yi Xian and narrowed his eyes. Sinner of misfortune. Yi Xian said fiercely, "Did you ask me to capture someone?" As he spoke, he was about to draw his sword. At this moment, little Ernie suddenly stood in front of him. She looked at Yi Xian. "Mu Xiaodao isn't here yet. If you escape now, you still have a chance." Yi Xian said angrily, "I won't escape." Little Ernie said angrily, "This is my business. I don't need you to interfere." Yi Xian was expressionless. "Whether I escape or not is also my business. I don't need you to interfere." Little Ernie glared at Yi Xian. She was speechless. "You." At this moment, the black-robed man suddenly said, "Capture the sinner of misfortune." As soon as he finished speaking, a black-robed man suddenly disappeared from the sky. A vicious glint flashed in Yi Xian's eyes, and he slashed forward with his sword. Boom! A wave of sword light exploded, and the black-robed man was forced back. But at this moment, a saber silently appeared at the back of his neck. It was so fast that Yi Xian could not dodge at all. Yi Xian did not choose to dodge either. Instead, he stabbed backward with his sword. It was a suicidal move. He had no choice. However, the black-robed man did not choose to die with him. The moment Yi Xian's sword stabbed backward, the black-robed man withdrew his saber and retreated. Yi Xian's attack missed. However, the moment his sword missed, a saber suddenly pierced straight down from the top of his head. It was a perfect combination. Yi Xian immediately activated his sword domain. As soon as it appeared, the saber's speed was instantly suppressed. At this instant, Yi Xian moved over 30 m back. However, he just stopped when 12 rays of light suddenly entered his sword domain. Bang! His sword domain was instantly slashed into pieces. In the next moment, a few hundred afterimages appeared in the space before him. Moreover, there were a few hundred rays of light mixed within those afterimages. Yi Xian closed his eyes slowly. Then he suddenly opened his eyes and thrust his sword out at high speed. Mortal sword. In an instant, he'd attacked over 100 times. Sword. Mortal sword. Bang, bang, bang. The rays of light from the sword and saber shattered while Yi Xian retreated repeatedly. Countless rays of light crisscrossed around him, and the sound of space being torn apart resounded incessantly like firecrackers. At that moment, little Air, who was not far away, suddenly disappeared. A blood-red bolt of divine lightning tore through the battlefield. Bang! In the distance, a certain space directly exploded. The battle had stopped. Little Ernie appeared by Yi Xian's side. At this moment, Yi Xian's body was densely covered in saber wounds. However, those wounds were recovering at an extremely fast speed. In the distance, the 12 people were covered in wounds as well. In the sky, the black-robed old man looked down at little Ernie. "Protector, do you know what you're doing?" Little Ernie ignored the black-robed old man, and she turned to look at Yi Xian. "I must go back." Yi Xian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "You won't have a good ending if you go back." Little Ernie looked straight at Yi Xian. "But I must go back. I made a mistake, and I deserve to be punished by the divine court." Yi Xian looked at little Ernie. "You made a mistake because you saved me. I'm part of this mistake." Little Ernie shook her head. "We stand on different sides in the end." Different sides? Yi Xian was silent. He was the misfortune entity, while little Ernie was the protector of the misfortune law, the protector of the cosmos god court. Yes, they stand on different sides. Little Ernie was about to speak, but at this moment, the black-robed old man suddenly said, "Kill." Kill. The 12 cosmic order enforcers were about to attack when little Ernie suddenly said, "Yin Ma, let him go. I will go back with you." The black-robed old man called Yin Ma looked at little Ernie. "Protector, do you know what you're saying?" Little Ernie looked at Yin Ma. "If you don't let him go, I will join forces with him. I'm afraid you're not our match." Yin Ma was silent, and her face was slightly ugly. She knew little Ernie's strength. If they were to fight, the 13 of them would not be this misfortune protector's match. It could be said that if little Ernie wanted to kill them, it would be very simple. Of course, he did not know that a portion of little Ernie's strength had been sealed. Moreover, he didn't believe that little Ernie would dare to kill them. If she really killed them, then she would truly be betraying the misfortune law and the Cosmos God Court. Little Ernie turned around to gaze at Yi Xian. Don't make it difficult for me. Going back with them is my choice. Because I was raised by the misfortune law, and I don't want to go against it. Take it as me begging you. Yi Xian was about to speak when a bolt of blood-red lightning suddenly descended from the sky. Little Ernie's expression instantly changed drastically when she sensed it, and she swiftly pushed Yi Xian away. A moment later, she was struck by it. Bang! Little Ernie's body exploded into pieces, and her soul was swept away by a bolt of blood-red divine lightning. Yi Xian was struck dumb at the sight of that. Not far away, Yama bowed slightly. Because it was the energy of the misfortune law that had attacked just now. Meanwhile, Mu Xiaodao suddenly appeared here. She glanced at the battlefield and smiled. She's finished. Yi Xian gazed at Mu Xiaodao. What are you trying to say? Mu Xiaodao gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. She's been sent to the boundless divine prison. She'll suffer a fate worse than death. P.S. I drank too much with a reader last night. I woke up late today, and my alarm didn't even wake me up. I'm fucking late again. I'll fucking beat anyone who dares to drink with me in the future. Chapter 1553. A Life Worse Than Death. Yi Xian's expression was as cold as ice. The soul-suppressing sword in his hand gradually trembled. Mu Xiaodao sized up Yi Xian and smiled. I really didn't expect her to go against the law of misfortune for you. This woman is usually quite smart. Why did she become so stupid this time? Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. How do I get to the boundless god prison? Mu Xiaodao blinked. You want to go to the boundless god prison to save her? Yi Xian looked at Mu Xiaodao and suddenly drew his sword. Sword drawing technique. The current sword drawing technique was worlds apart from the previous sword drawing technique. This was because he was now in the mortal realm. When the sword fell, heaven and earth were torn apart. In the distance, Mu Xiaodao opened her palm and the flying knife in her hand suddenly flew out. A sharp and ear-piercing tearing sound suddenly resounded. This flying knife directly slashed the tip of Yi Xian's sword. Boom! In front of Yi Xian, a beam of sword light suddenly exploded, and he was sent flying backward. He was sent flying thousands of feet away. After stopping, his arm felt numb. At the same time, a trace of blood slowly flowed out from the corner of his mouth. In the distance, Mu Xiaodao opened her palm and a flying knife appeared in her palm. She slowly walked towards Yi Xian and smiled. Are you in despair? You want to save her, but there's nothing you can do. Yi Xian chuckled. I suddenly realized that this so-called order of yours is very trashy. Mu Xiaodao caught the flying knife with 2 fingers and looked at Yi Xian. Are you questioning our Cosmos God Court? Yi Xian looked at Mu Xiaodao and pointed his sword at her. Yes. As his voice fell, he suddenly charged forward and instantly appeared in front of Mu Xiaodao and slashed down with his sword. In Mu Xiaodao's palm, a flying knife directly turned into a blade light and flew out. Boom! A wave of sword light shattered again and Yi Xian instantly retreated thousands of meters. However, at this moment, a sword suddenly appeared in front of Mu Xiaodao's forehead. Instant kill sword. Mu Xiaodao's expression was calm as she tilted her head slightly, once again dodging the sword by a hair's breadth. At the same time, the flying knife in her hand had already flown out. In the distance, Yi Xian blocked with his sword. Boom! The soul-suppressing sword in his hand trembled violently, and his entire body was sent flying again. At this moment, another flying knife appeared in Mu Xiaodao's hand. She looked at Yi Xian and chuckled. I know that you don't like our Cosmos God Court. However, what can you do? You can't beat him one-on-one. You won't be able to beat them in numbers. Are you angry? As she said that, she blinked. I know. You want to say that I'm bullying the weak. I like to bully the weak. What can you do to me? His words struck at the heart. She was purposely trying to provoke Yi Xian. It was easier to deal with an angry person. Of course, what she was truly worried about was that Yi Xian possessed that formidable sword qi from before. In the distance, Yi Xian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He laughed. Are you trying to provoke me? Mu Xiaodao looked at Yi Xian. Do you know what will happen to little heir? Her physical body has already been shattered, and her soul will be thrown into the boundless God prison. She will be burned by the heavenly law divine fire for eternity. Not only will there be the heavenly law divine fire, there will also be the 10,000 tribulation lightning soul refinement, divine water soul immersion, absolute ice spirit soul freezing. Most importantly, she will suffer the millions of lashes of the law soul whip every day. That feeling tsk. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian opened his palm. The soul-suppressing sword in his hand turned into a sword spirit. The sword of the green-robed man. Yi Xian's expression suddenly turned ferocious. Woman, you said that I can't beat you one-on-one. All right, let's fight one-on-one now. Remember, whoever calls for a helper is a dog. Boom. As his voice fell, his eyes turned blood red. At the same time, a surge of blood surged from his body. Boom. The entire starry sky turned into a sea of blood. Seeing this scene, Mu Xiaodao's eyes narrowed. What the hell is this? At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared on the spot. The flying knife in Mu Xiaodao's hand suddenly flew out. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly slashed down with his sword. The sword light was blood red. Boom. As the sword descended, Mu Xiaodao's flying knife was directly stopped. At this moment, the strength of both sides was actually equal. Seeing this scene, Mu Xiaodao frowned. What the hell is this? At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly stomped his right foot. Boom. Space instantly exploded, and the flying knife in front of him was directly slashed away. At the same time, he directly turned into a blood-red light and slashed at Mu Xiaodao. Mu Xiaodao did not retreat. Instead, he advanced and slashed at Yi Xian. Boom. A bloody light suddenly erupted not far away, and Yi Xian instantly retreated several thousand feet, while Mu Xiaodao also retreated nearly 3,000 feet. After he stopped, Mu Xiaodao looked at the chipped flying knife in disbelief. As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian, who was nearby, with disbelief. What the hell is this? How could his bloodline be so heaven-defying? In the distance, Yi Xian didn't waste his breath. He charged forward once more and slashed down at Mu Xiaodao. A wisp of viciousness flashed in Mu Xiaodao's eyes. I refuse to believe that I can't defeat you. As soon as she finished speaking, she took a step forward, and the flying knife in her palm suddenly flew out. Skybreaker! Army Destroyer! As the knife flew out, the entire world became illusory. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly sheathed his sword. In the next moment, he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Sword drawing technique. With a single slash, the space in an area of hundreds of thousands of meters exploded. Bang! Yi Xian's sword forcefully stopped Mu Xiaodao's flying knife. At the instant the sword came into contact with the flying knife, the space in an area of hundreds of thousands of kilometers turned pitch black. This world was utterly unable to endure the strength of the two of them. Right at this moment, Mu Xiaodao suddenly vanished on the spot. At practically the exact same moment, Yi Xian suddenly turned around and slashed down with his sword. Rumble! A figure was directly slashed back. It was Mu Xiaodao. As for Yi Xian, he retreated over 1 kilometer. After he stopped, Yi Xian held his sword and pointed it downwards. Powerful sword intent and aura erupted ceaselessly from his body like a volcano. In the distance, Mu Xiaodao stared fixedly at Yi Xian. She noticed that Yi Xian's aura was increasing explosively at every moment as if there was no limit. Mu Xiaodao frowned deeply. Just what kind of plaything was this bloodline? It's actually so heaven-defying. Although Yi Xian had reached the mortal realm, he had only just reached the mortal realm. There was still a huge gap between them. But at this moment, This mysterious bloodline power had actually made up for this gap. Most importantly, Yi Xian was still growing stronger. Thinking up to here, Mu Xiaodao spread out her palm. She knew that she had to end this battle quickly. Mu Xiaodao took a step forward. Above his head, an illusory flying knife suddenly condensed. In the distance, Yi Xian seemed to sense danger and suddenly disappeared on the spot. Strike first and gain the upper hand. But Mu Xiaodao did not give him this chance. Mu Xiaodao's soul suddenly unsheathed. Her soul directly grabbed the flying knife and slashed forward. God slaying. 1/God slaying. At the instant the knife was slashed out, a formidable force suddenly shot into the sky and directly shot into the starry sky that was 500,000 kilometers away, causing the entire starry sky to seethe. At the instant that Mu Xiaodao slashed out, Yi Xian suddenly utilized his sword domain. At the instant the sword domain appeared, the flying knife was directly suppressed. However, Yi Xian's countenance instantly turned pale like a sheet of paper. Moreover, the strength of the flying knife hadn't vanished, and it had merely slowed down slightly. Yi Xian suddenly took a step forward and slashed down with his sword. Rumble! This sword strike contained the strength of his sword domain. As soon as the sword descended, his sword domain was directly shattered into pieces, and the flying knife trembled violently as well. After that, two strands of formidable force suddenly erupted. Bang! Yi Xian was instantly blasted over 10 kilometers away. As soon as he stopped, his entire body split open and blood sprayed. On the other hand, Mu Xiaodao was blasted 3 kilometers away as well. These two forces were too strong. Even if it was her, she was unable to completely resist those two forces. After stopping, Mu Xiaodao raised her head to look at Yi Xian, who was nearby. When she saw that Yi Xian was heavily injured, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. "I've finally crippled you." As she spoke, she opened her palm and a flying knife appeared in her palm. She was about to attack again, but the smile on the corners of her mouth suddenly froze. Because in the distance, Yi Xian's wounds were recovering at a terrifying speed. The undying bloodline. At this moment, within Yi Xian's body, the undying bloodline was madly repairing Yi Xian's body. Moreover, Yi Xian's mad demon bloodline didn't suppress the undying bloodline. At this critical moment, the mad demon bloodline didn't act recklessly. Of course, it wasn't that it didn't act recklessly, but it was because of the sword spirit. When the sword spirit was present, the mad demon bloodline still had to give him face. Soon, Yi Xian's injuries were almost fully recovered. In the distance, Mu Xiaodao stared at Yi Xian. "These two bloodlines of yours are really abnormal." At this moment, in the distance, Yi Xian suddenly said in a ferocious voice, "Please kill me." At this moment, he hadn't completely entered the mad demon state. Because he still had something very important to do, so he didn't dare to let himself completely enter the mad demon state. He must maintain a trace of consciousness. Mu Xiaodao looked at Yi Xian, so arrogant. As she spoke, the flying knife in her hand suddenly flew out. In the distance, Yi Xian stabbed out with his sword. Boom! The flying knife was forced to stop in place by his sword. The next moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. In the distance, Mu Xiaodao blocked with her knife. Boom! A blood-colored sword light erupted, and Mu Xiaodao was directly pushed back. But Yi Xian didn't stop and rushed forward again. Soon the two of them fought fiercely. Yi Xian was still at a slight disadvantage, but the more he fought, the stronger he became. Especially relying on the powerful recovery ability of the immortal bloodline, the more he fought, the fiercer he became. The power of the two bloodlines forcibly closed the gap between him and Mu Xiaodao. Of course, the most important thing was that he was now in the mortal realm. After the mortal realm, the mad demon bloodline was even more terrifying. At this moment, Mu Xiaodao suddenly stopped in the distance. She looked at Yi Xian and said angrily, "You're really shameless. You actually used foreign objects. I'm warning you now, if you don't stop using foreign objects, I'll beat you up." Yi Xian. At this moment, Xiaota suddenly said angrily, "F*C, this woman is actually more shameless than you, young master." Chapter 1554. Group Fight. Actually, Mu Xiaodao felt extremely sullen in her heart, because she realized that she couldn't kill Yi Xian. With the help of the two bloodlines, Yi Xian was able to compete with her. Of course, it wasn't very possible for Yi Xian to kill her. But it wasn't a good idea to continue like this, because Yi Xian was becoming stronger and stronger. Her main purpose of coming here was to kill Yi Xian. In the distance, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. A sea of blood surged around him. Mad demon bloodline. He realized that if it wasn't for the sword spirit's help, he wouldn't be able to control the mad demon bloodline. Suddenly Mu Xiaodao said, "I'm warning you for the last time. If you continue to use external force, I'll beat you up." Yi Xian looked at Mu Xiaodao and opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with a sea of blood. "Woman, you're bullying the weak, and you won't let me use external force?" Mu Xiaodao said angrily, "What do you mean by bullying the weak? You're in the mortal realm, and so am I. Is this bullying the weak? Moreover, you're a man and I'm a woman. Don't you think it's shameful for a man like you to use external force to fight a woman?" Yi Xian cursed, "Shameful your mother. Is that what you're saying? You're a super expert after all. Can't you have some face?" Mu Xiaodao slapped his face. "Face is just skin. What's the use of it? What's the use?" Yi Xian, in the prison pagoda, Xiaodao sighed, "It's over. In terms of shamelessness, young master has met his match." Mu Xiaodao suddenly said, "Since you insist on using external force, then I won't be polite anymore." As she spoke, she looked at Yan Mo. "Let's beat him up together." Yan Mo nodded slightly. He'd wanted to do that for a long time. Mu Xiaodao opened his palm and a flying dagger flashed across the field. Yan Mo and the others disappeared on the spot as well. Ganging up. In the distance, Yi Xian's expression suddenly changed. He held his sword with both hands and slashed forward. Boom! The flying dagger was stopped by his sword, but at this moment, hundreds of afterimages suddenly appeared around him. The saber light swept across, shattering the space. Yi Xian stomped his right foot and retreated. At the same time, he swung the sword in his hand. Boom, 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 boom. As a series of explosions rang out, Yi Xian kept retreating. While he was retreating, the saber gleams drowned him like a torrential storm. At this time, Mu Xiaodao, who was far away, suddenly threw out his fingers. A flying dagger suddenly disappeared into the saber radiance. Boom! The saber light directly exploded, and Yi Xian instantly retreated several tens of thousands of meters away. As soon as he stopped, his chest split open and blood spurted out. It was caused by a flying dagger. Heavy injuries. If it wasn't for the undying bloodline that was repairing his body, he would be dead by now. Right at this moment, Yan Mo and the others charged towards him again. At the same time, Mu Xiaodao opened her palm, and another flying dagger appeared in her palm. Mu Xiaodao looked at Yi Xian, who was being besieged. "It's over." As soon as she finished speaking, the flying dagger in her hand suddenly flew out. In the distance, Yi Xian's pupils constricted as he was fighting against the law enforcers. At this moment he was pinned down by the law enforcers and the others, so he couldn't resist the flying dagger at all. Moreover, if he didn't, the flying dagger would take his life. At this critical moment, Yi Xian suddenly roared furiously, "Condense!" Bang! In an instant, the blood qi in the surroundings suddenly condensed into numerous blood swords, and they slashed towards the flying dagger, controlling the swords with his thoughts. Bang! 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 The blood swords slashed against the flying dagger. Even though they weren't able to block it, they did slow down the flying dagger. Mu Xiaodao's beautiful brows knit together slightly when she witnessed this scene. She opened her palm, and another flying dagger appeared. In the next moment, this flying dagger flew forward. The sound of space being torn apart suddenly resounded. Two flying daggers. Yi Xian's expression had become ferocious, and then his body suddenly started burning, igniting his lifespan. Life sword. Actually, he didn't have much lifespan left. But at this moment he had no choice but to ignite it, because he would definitely die if he didn't. As his lifespan was ignited, Yi Xian's aura suddenly rose explosively. Yi Xian held his sword with both hands and suddenly slashed forward. Bang! His sword slashed down, and the expanse of light in front of him was instantly slashed into pieces. The 12 law enforcers and Yan Mo were blasted over 30 kilometers back, and Mu Xiaodao's flying daggers were instantly blasted flying as well. On the other hand, Yi Xian seemed as if he'd collapsed, and he almost fell to the ground. At this moment, he only had less than 10 days of lifespan left. This was even because the sword spirit had forcefully stopped him. If the sword spirit hadn't stopped him, then he would have perished on the spot. In the distance, Mu Xiaodao glanced at Yi Xian, and she was slightly shocked in her heart. The might of Yi Xian's attack from before was slightly abnormal. Why does this fellow have so many trump cards? Mu Xiaodao didn't think too much about it. She opened her palm, and another flying dagger appeared. She was able to discern that Yi Xian was very weak after he executed that secret technique. Now was the best opportunity to kill Yi Xian. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm, and a box appeared in his hand. Yi Xian gazed at Mu Xiaodao, and he wiped off the blood on the corners of his mouth. "Woman, I really don't want to open this box now. I advise you to be kind." Mu Xiaodao gazed at Yi Xian. "Are you threatening me?" Yi Xian said angrily, "I am threatening you. Come at me if you have the balls." Mu Xiaodao remained silent. She didn't think that Yi Xian was bluffing. Damn it, this person has too many trump cards. Especially the sword chi at the beginning. If there were more. Thinking of this, Mu Xiaodao kept the flying dagger, retreated to the side, and looked at Yan Mo. "You guys go first." Yi Xian, Yan Mo and the others' expressions froze. Was this how they played? Yan Mo hesitated for a moment and then said, "Miss Mu, you're stronger." Mu Xiaodao blinked. "Don't tell me you think I'm afraid of death, that's why I don't dare to go?" Yan Mo glanced at Mu Xiaodao. "Was that not the case?" Mu Xiaodao said seriously, "I'm the dignified Mu Xiaodao, how can I be afraid of death? The reason why I let you guys go first is because I want to give this credit to you enforcers. I had good intentions, but you guys misunderstood me. I'm so angry. I want to complain that you guys are cowards, and don't dare to go forward in the face of the enemy." Yan Mo suddenly said, "Miss Mu, stop talking. Can't we go?" As he spoke, he sighed in his heart. Damn it, there was nothing he could do when he encountered such a muddle-headed person. Most importantly, she was of a higher rank than him. Moreover, Mu Xiaodao was famous for being a troublemaker in the Cosmos Divine Court, so forming a grudge with her would cause him to suffer in the future. Yan Mo looked at Yi Xian in the distance, and then he led the 12 enforcers and charged over. At the side, Mu Xiaodao glanced at the box in Yi Xian's hand, and then she opened her palm, and a flying dagger suddenly flew out. She'd thought it through. She didn't fight Yi Xian head-on, and she would stab him in the dark. In the distance, Yi Xian's eyes gradually turned icy cold, and he was about to open the box when the sky suddenly split open, and a powerful aura descended from the sky. Bang! A powerful force blasted the 12 enforcers back, and the flying dagger in front of Yi Xian was suddenly stopped by a mysterious force. A woman stood in front of Yi Xian. Undying Emperor Race's patriarch, Dong Li Jing. Dong Li Jing punched out. Boom! That flying dagger was directly sent flying. In the distance, Mu Xiaodao opened her palm, and a flying dagger landed in her hand. Mu Xiaodao looked at Dong Li Jing. Undying Emperor Race. Dong Li Jing had one hand behind her back, and she looked at Mu Xiaodao. "Yes." Mu Xiaodao smiled. "Is the Undying Emperor Race declaring war on the Cosmos Divine Court?" Dong Li Jing didn't reply. She turned to look at Yi Xian, and when she saw the two bloodlines in Yi Xian's body, her eyes constricted. Two peak bloodlines coexisting. Moreover, Yi Xian was still in the mortal realm. Such a young mortal realm. Dong Li Jing suddenly laughed. She turned to Mu Xiaodao. "Going against the Cosmos Divine Court? So what?" Mu Xiaodao gave a thumbs up. "You've got guts." Dong Li Jing suddenly said, "Big Dipper." A woman clad in armor suddenly appeared behind Higashi Yasushi as soon as he finished speaking. Dongli Jing looked at the dying Yi Xian, immediately escort the young master to the 9 dimensions, and send him back to the clan at all costs. Whoever dares to stop us, no matter who, kill without mercy. Big Dipper said, "Understood." With that, she turned and disappeared into the horizon with Yi Xian. In the distance, Mu Xiaodao suddenly said, "You guys chase after them." Yan Ma and the rest disappeared on the spot. Dongli Jing was about to attack, but a saber force enveloped her. Dongli Jing looked at Mu Xiaodao, and Mu Xiaodao smiled. She opened her palm, and a golden stone suddenly floated up, turned into a golden light, and disappeared into the depths of the universe. Call for reinforcements. Mu Xiaodao was very clear that with the undying emperor race's interference, they couldn't kill Yi Xian. Watching the golden light disappear into the depths of the universe, Mu Xiaodao retracted her gaze and looked at Dongli Jing. "Undying emperor race, I'm afraid you can't afford to play with us." Dongli Jing smiled. "Won't you know if you can or can't afford to play with us?" Mu Xiaodao looked at Dongli Jing. "Come, let's exchange a few moves." With that, the throwing knife in her hand suddenly flew out. In the distance, Dongli Jing's eyes flashed with hostility, and in the next instant, she directly charged out. Boom! A great battle erupted. Somewhere in the horizon, Big Dipper was madly running with Yi Xian. Return to the undying emperor race. At this moment, Yan Ma and the rest suddenly appeared in front of Big Dipper. Yan Ma looked at Big Dipper. "Put him down." Big Dipper suddenly said, "Kill." With that, the surrounding space suddenly split open, and in the next instant, 36 people directly charged out. The undying emperor army. Big Dipper directly left with Yi Xian. Behind them, Yan Ma's expression suddenly became ferocious. He opened his palm, and a pitch-black token suddenly shot into the sky, straight into the depths of the universe. Enforcement order. Once this order was issued, regardless of where in the universe the enforcers were, they had to rush over as fast as possible. Big Dipper directly brought Yi Xian to the 7th dimension, and beside her were 46 experts from the Undying Emperor Army. As soon as they arrived in the 7th dimension, Big Dipper directly roared, "Immediately open the universe barrier." As soon as she finished speaking, she took Yi Xian and dashed away. In the 7th dimension, countless experts followed and escorted. Just as they arrived in front of the universe barrier, a spatial vortex suddenly appeared above their heads, and at the same time, a voice came from the depths of the vortex. "This is a sinner with a body of misfortune, who dares to save him?" Big Dipper turned his head to look at an undying emperor army beside him. "Stop them." That expert replied, "Understood." As soon as he finished speaking, he led the 46 super experts beside him and charged into the black whirlpool. Big Dipper directly led Yi Xian into the 8th dimension. Along the way, Big Dipper's eyes were as cold as ice, and on her waist, there were 100 wooden jade tokens. But at this moment, those jade tokens were currently shattering. Those were soul tokens. P.S. Don't go away, there's more. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.